It is another episode 46 to be exact, of Around the Mage Table, the podcast for the rest of us. I am joined by some weirdos, starting with Lithian. I haven't actually seen you in a little bit. You've been coming and going from keys, but not really too much playing lately. How you doing?
No, I've been busy with work. I'm tired.
So pathetic. I'm so tired. I have to get up in 12 hours.
Yeah, he was worn out from the MDI time trials.
That's true.
Oh gosh.
Scrap, how are you doing today?
I'm good. For me,
Yeah?
I'm not tired because this is like, I only woke up a couple hours ago, like
Yeah, actually,
Sunday's my day.
we normally record this on a Wednesday, and we decided on Wednesday. I wasn't really feeling it, and I think Lithian, you said you had to work really early, so you're like, guys, I can't do it tonight. Thank God, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, to my sworn mortal enemy, as one might tell based on our interactions on Twitter, Io, how are you doing today?
It's x.com, Frank.
Nope. Twitter.
Oh
Never.
gosh.
I will never acknowledge it as x.com.
I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Okay, so we were planning on coming to bring you an episode, again, recorded on Wednesday night, delivered on Monday when you would normally get this episode, about a couple things. 11.1.5 launched. There was some rockiness to that. There's some, people talking about resilient keys and are they really that great? But as we got ready for Thursday's recording, we had to throw everything out the window because shit hit the fan. All right. So we are going to try our best to condense all this information within our normal allotted 2 hours. I will put a hard stop to it if I have to cover the big, bad, awful week that Blizzard has had. Okay. Are we ready to jump in? We're just going to get straight to it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right,
Yay.
cool. So we're going to start with 11.1.5, which was scheduled to launch on Tuesday of last week. It did launch. Now, there was already some criticism going into this. I don't know if we actually talked about this other than the fact that we weren't seeing really any tuning to the classes. Arguably, when we did complain about that, they did tune it, that literally like next day after we recorded the video and posted it. However, it wasn't a major overhaul. It wasn't like huge class reworks or anything like that. Maybe that's the norm now. Like they've kind of done most of the major things they wanted to do and they'll just tweak from here and there. But we also talked about the fact that there wasn't really much content coming out, okay? So let's review how 11.1.5 launched. And I'll just ask if you guys will speak up if you experienced or heard of any of these issues, okay? So first and foremost, on the day of launch, we got a tweet here from Tettles. People weren't even able to log in, right? From the get-go, at the launch day, there were tons of people complaining about not being able to log in, tons of people complaining about getting kicked out. I think we rated this night, if I remember correctly. I didn't experience it.
By that night, it was, by the time I got on after work, I didn't hear anything about this. It was fine. So maybe, do we know if it was like an hour or 2 hours?
This is posted at 5:42. So the servers had been up at that point probably for 3 hours-ish.
Seems like a Tettles issue.
Yeah, bro, why are you typing all caps chill? Like, it's not the end of the world.
Well, I'm not gonna continue to beef with Tettles. People are actually joining our Discord now. No, I'm not. Yeah. He's got some bad takes this week. We'll get to that in a minute. But yes, I agree that this was maybe a little overreaction. There were actually other people tweeting though that they were upset because they were like submitting tickets to Blizzard customer service and tweeting at them, and then Blizzard customer service was coming into their replies, responding to other people's responses saying I'm having this problem. So yeah, they were getting tilted there. But that wasn't the only problem. We did see that there was a alleged nerf to Muggsy. Now this was supposed to be across all difficulties. In fact, this is the final state right here. But Blizzard not only put, I guess, the wrong nerfs, so they reverted them, and you can see here, look, they reverted what was announced at 3 o'clock when the patch officially launched, and it was data mined. And then immediately right after that, 5 o'clock, put in a new nerf to Muggsy. So sloppy things going into the patch notes, of course. There were reports of great vaults having repeated rewards.
I heard a report from Lithian about that.
Yeah, Lithian, you experienced this?
I mean, I had some pants. I had like 4 pairs of pants, and 2 of them were identical.
4 pairs of pants,
But
anyways.
you know what? It's fine. I guess I was gonna get some pants.
Well, so
I did.
they said by Wednesday morning they would have it resolved, but I was hearing that some people, if they had already opened it or if they'd already selected something,
I
they
already got
would
my
not
pants.
be able to, resolve the issue. Has anyone? Did you confirm that? Did you pull?
No, I think Lithium did. I know Fear was saying he was gonna wait, but I don't know if he had anything happen with
He
his.
He had 2 of the worst trinkets, and that's all he had in his vault. Was just
So
2 of the
sad.
same worst trinket.
All
I didn't
right.
have an issue. It was wide. It was
I heard a lot of it.
very,
I heard
very
a lot. I
like
didn't.
sparsely spread.
Well,
Okay. Well, it didn't sound
Well,
like
think about how many people we have in raid. We have like 25 people in our raid, and 2 people had the issue. So.
2 people that spoke up, but that's 10% affected rate already.
Well, why, dude? You know, any of our raiders would speak up if that happened to them.
I don't know.
Like,
You know, I don't see
Shut up about
Gully
it.
or, like someone else going like, oh man, what the fuck?
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Well, let's poll them after.
So then there was another change that I guess, and forgive me if you comment and tell me I'm incorrect in my understanding of this, but so apparently Blizzard wasn't happy that people were killing Gallywix and getting Hall of Fame / Cutting Edge. I think it was just Hall of Fame. Yeah, Hall of Fame. For killing Gallywix. So they shadow changed it that you had to kill the last 3 bosses. So One Arm Bandit, Muggsy, and Galley to get Hall of Fame. But no one knew this at first. So they were like, what the fuck? We just killed it. And we didn't get Hall of Fame. We didn't get, I think they got Cutting Edge. And then, of course, Blizzard announced, well, you have to do it. So everyone was furious because they had to go back and kill One Arm Bandit and Muggsy, which are arguably the 2 harder bosses. People had purposely not been repulling them. They'd just been using their lockout. So that was another issue that came as a result of the patch. What else was there? Oh, yeah. Apparently, everyone just like logged into all of the renown of the raid track being given to them.
I saw somebody with the T-Rex mount in
people were just walking
Portugal.
around with the T-Rex.
Yeah, I was like, what gives?
Right?
I didn't get this.
I didn't follow up on that. That's crazy.
I don't know. I haven't heard of anything coming of this. I did see a couple people again on Twitter posting pictures of their mounts and all the cool things that they also got with it. But I've not seen a single thing said about it being reverted and or maybe being punished. I think it'd be unfair if Blizzard punished it, but people were saying like, hey, you need to be careful because Blizzard has punished for this in the past.
That's true, but
it's their bug.
Running around with a T-Rex mount isn't really like game power, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's the raid
get
buff.
extra power to the raid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna not raid just because they accidentally, gave me a power buff.
Well,
you know what I mean? So it'd be shitty of them to do that.
You need to talk to the person to get it anyway. So you could have noticed you didn't have it and then just not activate that particular thing. So you would just have to do that.
I mean, we've had this argument over and over again. I'm in the side of like, if they let it happen, I'm gonna take advantage of it.
And
like,
this is like also like
punish
some people, they didn't do anything wrong to earn it, right? Like it's not like they abused
Yeah.
it. My understanding is
they
people were
didn't
just like
know.
randomly getting it and they're like, oh, what the fuck? Cool.
You give me a thing, I take a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't punish them for that. That's not cool. Let them keep their T-Rexes.
Right, so let's see.
I feel like I saw a T-Rex like Friday, so I feel like they haven't walked it back.
Well, and again, I would think that there would be some sort of Wowhead post and or a blue post saying like, hey, this is what happened and we are punishing those people. We're not punishing those people. We're rolling it back. Honestly, given the severity of how bad this patch has launched, outside of just like the choices and decisions they made for the patch, this is probably low on their totem pole. So we had one issue, people not being able to log in. We had the nerfing all over the place for the raid. We had the Great Vault mishap. We had the, what was it? The Hall of Fame mishap. We had the Renown track mishap. And then the only content to have launched with the actual patch, Nightfall Scenarios, was bugged.
Hey.
And I think Lithium, you and Shawnee were doing this, and
I tried. It didn't work.
So my understanding is like the final boss you couldn't like progress or something, right?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was bugging out, so I just left. I'm like, I don't have time. It's not even worth to do it, but whatever. I like to get all the renowned things.
I don't know. I think they said that they had put a fix in, but when I talked to Shawnee about it, he said it still wasn't working quite yet. Now this was on, again, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. But it's safe to say that 1.5 has been a shit show. People have already been complaining about the fact that why is everything time gated, especially so. And I think we talked about this too. Like, Lithian, you were calling that the Dastardly Duos was going to launch with 1.7, and you were even worried that the Dinars weren't even going to show up at all, right?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't say anything about it, so.
So before we get into that, what do you guys think? What's happening with these patches? Because this is certainly not in the realm of what have we been grown to accustomed to with this new cadence from Dragonflight into War Within.
Definitely. I mean, the 0.5 patches, they always give us like something decent. Like even the last time where they gave us that shitty island that sucked with the ring and stuff, it's like that was still something, you know?
The 0.5 patch last season too was when they had all those bugs for like the rogue bug, and I think shamans were OP and a bunch of class tunings messed up.
The reason that was all bugged is because they did big class changes, like huge class changes.
They reworked it.
I think it's because they have this schedule they're trying to stick to, and stuff's just falling through the cracks because instead of just delaying it and saying, hey, it's not done yet, we're still working on it, it's going to take a little longer, we're sorry. They said, no, we said this patch is going to launch this day. It says so on the roadmap. We have to get it out.
Well,
and if we don't, then...
Well,
the roadmap doesn't give dates.
Date. They gave a time frame, but I mean, this patch, nothing changed for me. I just did what I did before this patch. It was a big nothing. So...
Yeah, because the only thing that was like and again, we haven't even gotten to what comes after the patch launch, because they did put a blue post up saying, "Hey, Dinars have not been forgotten. We will talk about it as soon as the patch launches." But the only power that was coming, because this was all like catch up gear. There's the winds of leveling, whatever it's called, buff that you can get. So that is in game, and that is, I think, working as intended.
Yeah, there you go.
But
I don't have any alts.
But the Hellman chance, the corruption stuff that's supposed to be coming with the scenarios that are coming early June. I can't remember.
In like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. End of May then.
Early June that's a long time from now.
Well,
a month.
That's the thing. Like, was 11.0.5 was that the island, or was that 0.7?
They didn't do a 0.7.
No,
No,
they did do 0.7.
Okay, we'll check me on that, because I'm pretty sure 0.5 was the island.
That makes sense, but they did do a 0.7. Okay.
I mean, they did 0.7. It was more like this, where they just didn't do shit.
Yeah, but even then, I think they did at least like some class tuning, like major. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I mean, there's this expectation now that we kind of get like this big event of things to do that will that will also kind of boost power, just for give like a mid-season jump.
Give a ring, give a net, give a Hellman chant.
What I don't understand is, like, there's an argument to be made, obviously, that they're falling behind, or that they rushed the patch because they have these expectations based on the roadmap. But that doesn't explain why they put 6 weeks on the Dastardly Duos and 3 weeks on the, because like, especially the scenarios, that stuff is like, it's baked, it's done. Like, I mean,
well, that's what I thought was so weird when we looked at it. It was last week or the week before. What is that? The 11.5 patch was like, well, this week we're gonna do this, and this week we're gonna do this, and this week we're gonna do this. It's like, okay, it's not really like a content patch. It's like it's a content promise, and then here's next week we'll get this, and hopefully it's not broken. I feel like they've never done that before, where they were like, this content patch will be 3 weeks of fun, where we give you a little something each time.
I've been seeing people just kind of saying they think it's because they are trying to keep people subscribed, so they want to spread the content out so people can't just do it all in the beginning.
Well, okay.
But,
all right, hold on. That's an interesting thought, though, because their model for that has been classic and season discovery to a degree.
Yeah.
Mop remix. Mop on classic is in beta officially this week. So like, that seems to, and arguably classic has, especially with the OnlyFang stuff and the hardcore, has seen a huge boost to its driving subscribers, that I would be surprised if they are like, well, we have to do it in retail too, and then to fumble it so that it's not, this is like less engaging in my opinion, right?
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird
because you only have to collect the sub once in a month, and people might even do 3 and 6 months and 12 months subscriptions anyways. So like, all they're really doing is maybe buying one extra month if this is their tactic, and you know, who knows, maybe that's enough. But then all that to the actual launch where it's just a literal shit show, it feels like there was only 2 or 3 people working on this patch to begin with.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that would make, if I was not a 12-month subscriber, like, and this game was like my whole life, like if I was like more casual player, saving $15 every now and then, if I logged onto this patch and then saw it was this, I would unsub. Like,
Do you
like,
hold on? But okay, do you think you would do that if you were in? Okay, you're that player right now, right? You're
I'm
the
that player.
casual
Okay,
Andy.
yeah.
Do you think you would have noticed half of the things, if any? Like, you're not reading Wowhead, you're not.
Okay, so like let's say I had the accomplishments that I have now where I'm like, you know, close to 13 resilient, I've got AOTC. I'm looking at the mile-long stretch that is the rest of this patch, and I already feel like I'm kind of done with it. You know what I mean?
Don't you feel that way already as a hardcore?
I do, but I like to, but I'm not gonna. I'm 12 months subbed, so.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm just saying, if I wasn't like, and I was more casual, and I already accomplished what I accomplished, which I think is within the realm of most like normal, like like people who are a bit extra about WoW, but not crazy about WoW. Like those are reasonable accomplishments to me, right? I feel like a lot of people have hit those things, and now it's like we're not even at 0.7 until June. Well, when's the next raid patch coming out? Probably not till August. I'm like, well, I could go outside and play Minecraft and do some other things and save $15 here and there.
Yeah,
you know, like
but I mean that's a risk every 0.5, 0.7 patch, right?
Yeah, but
and
it's
arguably
way more of a risk when they give you nothing.
No, but arguably Mythic Plus is its healthiest it's ever been, right?
Mythic Plus is fun.
But I'm kind of done with it, you know.
The problem is with a 0.5 patch, I expected some change or some rework or whatever, but there was really nothing. And I'm just doing what I was doing before. Like nothing, literally nothing has changed. I do exactly what I did before.
And that's contrary to what you've done in the past two, the expansion and this.
Well, think about last patch where we got this ring that gave us big player power, you know, and then we were like, okay, sick. Now we can push further than we could before, you know.
You keep saying big player power. Do you remember what the
huge.
percent?
It was massive.
What was it?
You said? Didn't you say 2? Didn't you say 2%?
That was more.
It was 3%.
No, it was 3%? It was way more. Maybe for you.
And I can't wait to talk about Dinars with Scrap.
I'm still using it. I'm still using that ring.
Last 0.5 patch to change the meta because there were all those changes, and this one it seems like it's pretty much the exact same.
Well, no, hold on. There has been a shift.
Arcane Mage.
Oh, I'm sorry, Arcane Mage.
No, there has been a shift because they did the tuning pass the week before the patch, and on the tournament, the MDI stuff, Arcane Mage has, at least in one of the dungeons, we'll see what it looks like in the actual MDI. Has taken a foot forward over the other mages, fire mostly. But there is also a little bit tweaking with Oracle Disc, like that was nerfed. I don't know how it's shaken out in the meta because I really haven't been bothered to look. In fact, I don't think I have had any podcasts shouting it at me either. But there was obviously a little bit of a shift in the meta. And it's and just on my side of the Arcane one, can I just say I hate having Arcane in the meta because
there's only one change and it's Arcane Mage.
No,
that's
Oracle,
it. Everything
Oracle
else is the same.
Oracle Disc has been,
it's still Disc.
Holy Paladin's been climbing, right? Ioski, it's now listed as A or A plus on Icy Veins.
It's listed up there still. I think
there has been some shift.
Higher.
It's not monumental.
I got thrown into the trash can completely.
Survival.
Well,
they don't even have any WoW op scores anymore.
Like
it's tough.
The tank meta is exactly the same. Brewmaster is moving up a little bit.
Yeah. Brewmaster's definitely getting better.
I mean, I don't know. There's just no. It didn't feel like a 0.5 to me. It just felt like another day.
That's indisputable because when the last 0.5 came out, Elemental, despite it being broken for a day or two, like shot up. And actually, I don't even think Elemental finished as the top. Like Enhancement still was one of the better performing specs, at least when it came to the title range. I know that because I've been doing tons of research this week. But yes, you're right. Like, I mean, it was just a monumental shift. And that was also the patch I think they killed Og, right?
No, it was
the
Disc
one.
Flat.
1.0. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So all that aside, strange patch to begin with, and now a shit show for the launch. Do we need to start getting worried?
Dinargate.
No, we haven't got there. We haven't even got there.
I
I
thought
told
we were
you-
transferring.
no,
to
are we-
No, no.
what is
I'm
this?
just talking about. Are we? Is anyone worried? What is because 11.1.7 has gone here? I got a little thing about it. Where did I put it? Here we go. 11.1.7 has gone up on the PTR. I don't know if it's playable yet. Yeah, there's just a catalog change, so they haven't really swapped it over yet. But yeah, I mean, like we're looking down at another patch here. Who knows what the fuck's gonna be in it?
Yeah,
maybe they're saving the reworks for this. I don't know.
Frank. You know what I'm gonna say?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna say I've been worried since the fucking load screen, man.
Oh my
That was
gosh,
the
not
beginning
the
of
load
all of
screen.
Yeah.
this. The login screen. I mean, I always say load screen, but you know what I mean.
I'm a little worried
Logins.
because you have the weird content cadence spread out among the entire patch, and they haven't really come out and addressed that at all. So they're not giving a reason for it. That's just how they did it. At least I haven't seen a reason.
They'll have to answer for it when the 11.2 stuff
Yeah.
comes up because they'll have interviews and people will ask.
But
Yeah,
like, if I'm a scrap, if I wasn't doing the Mythic raid with that guild, I don't even know how much motivation I'd have to play. I just kind of log in and fill vaults now. I barely do anything else other than like raid logs. So,
You know, it's sorry, go on with it.
No, I think they need to take a step back. They need to fix their communication issues, and they need to really tighten up on what they're actually releasing and make it good and make it workable. Because if they don't, the 0.7 patch is gonna flop, and people are gonna start moving to other things.
Yeah, I don't know why they thought a rolling patch would be a good idea, because it's just like I can understand like to keep people sub because they want to see each week what the next thing we're gonna get. But if the first thing they give us is dog shit, then it's like, well, now I definitely don't want to see the next thing they're gonna
but-
serve. You know, they kind of
but-
like come in with the heavy hitter and say like, this is the cool thing, and then
Based on the quality of the releases, it seems like they're rushing, like Iaski alluded to, but they're not putting enough time into testing and validating that the work is good and it's
Yeah.
functional. At least make it functional. I don't care about the rolling releases and all that stuff. As long as things work like they're supposed to. I'd like to see some substantial change, but make it work, make it functional, do proper testing.
Well, hold
and
on, but I mean,
do
they
your
had it
dev
up on the
stuff.
PTR. I'd say longer than I envisioned.
yeah, but they're relying on
dude,
their player base to play test it.
Yeah, are they
Yeah, but-
relying on me to go test it? Because
Yeah, but people are going and testing it. What? Okay, what do you think them playtesting it over us playtesting it is going to deliver?
if they're playtesting it on a small scale and then they deploy it without doing any stress test, which it seems like is what happened with some of the things, then that's a miss on them.
But
and
how do they
need to figure out
do
to
a stress test? Yeah,
They got to figure out how to do a stress test. That's for them to figure out.
but they can't do it internally.
They could do it. They could do it internally.
How?
Get a bunch of AI to log in a bunch of
They
characters.
can. Well, no, they can mock a huge player base, and you could do all kinds of things to mock.
Do you think
load?
But do you think any of this was based off load? I mean, maybe the Nightfall scenarios, but like.
But don't you think if there was
there's
but Frank, don't
communication
you think if
issues
there
for
was, like,
sure.
Well, the communication issues have nothing to do with development.
Yeah,
That's
you're
just-
absolutely right. That's another
just-
story. We'll get to that later with the Dinars.
Yeah, that's just a different problem. But the functionality of the game, I mean, they didn't even release a lot of functionality, but the functionality they did release should have been tested appropriately and should have been released well, since it wasn't even a lot. So
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean-
go on, Scott.
Frank, don't you think with the patch, like if they had players play testing, it's like, oh, here's the thing. What is it? Scenarios that came out this week?
No, it's
What's the
like,
thing
well,
that-
it is a
Just
scenario, but
one
it's like
scenario.
it's a live scenario.
A
Just like
scenario.
those world,
so there were
world
definitely
events, right?
there were definitely players playtesting that and saying like, "Yep, it works." Like, and then they launch it and it doesn't work. Like,
Mhm.
so how are they supposed to have used their player base to detect that?
Well,
Clearly, something is
question,
broken internally.
yeah, my question is, how are they supposed to detect it if the player base can't detect it?
Well, I don't know a lot about coding or
you can
whatever the heck
test.
you do, but like it's like, shouldn't they be able to see that something is broken without having people test it? Like they can't just like look at it and say like, oh, We missed this part of it.
Lithian has way more experience in this, but I will just say that I think every developer has hit a point where they've made, again, spaghetti code even aside, where they've made something and then they're like, this is perfect, the coding's perfect, and then they run it and it still doesn't work and they still don't know why. Now the problem is that this problem didn't create itself in the PTR. Part of that might be just because like when they copy the code over, like, you know, codes conflict with each other and they didn't catch because they didn't have some sort of add-on, I don't know, something that would have caused this. Like for all we know, the reason why the vault maybe double picked things is because all these players had this add-on installed and they just didn't realize it because the add-on didn't work on the PTR. That may not be the case. I'm just giving an example, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But like Lithian, you gotta admit, like, it's not that simple to just catch things that are a problem.
It's not simple, and the reality. I mean, this isn't an indie studio, man. This is a.
They've definitely cut that staff though. That's undeniable.
I know, and that's probably part of the problem, and that's probably what's creating a lot of this chaos. Is they're making a lot of changes internally. We don't see those internal changes, but I know
we barely hear about them sometimes.
I know that type of shakeup can cause all kinds of chaos, and it can. You get rid of folks with that institutional knowledge, and things just don't work.
That's actually a really good point, because there's a difference between, and I'm going to refer to Leo here, right? Leo could like catch these things, I'm sure, with his eyes closed. But you keep bringing in people because, you know, those veterans not only will go somewhere where they get paid better, because Blizzard historically doesn't pay better, right? But they also might just be tired of this shit and say, hey, I want to go make, you know, like that French studio that made that really awesome RPG, right? 33 developers on that entire studio that made what's it called? Expedition 33.
Oh yeah.
The new J I'm putting J because it's not from Japan, it's from France, but the new RPG that's a lot like
RPG.
fantasy, yeah. And you know, they're going to be more lured to studios like that, and or other studios that will just flat out play better, like Riot. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Lethan, that maybe this is just like inexperience from their dev team, that they can't foresee these problems.
The problem is that they make cuts in the dev team, but it doesn't cut our expectations of what we've learned to expect from Blizzard, which is good quality stuff.
I don't even think they're making cuts on the dev team. I think they're just getting cut themselves because of their poor pay and their poor, maybe more conditions, stuff like that.
Well,
so they're inadvertently cutting it.
It results in a poorer product, and it really does make me sad, because I do think that this this content patch is so beautifully and lovingly done in a lot of ways, but like the raid boss, the final boss kind of sucking is all anybody's ever gonna remember, I feel like.
Do you okay, hold on, let's take a quick sidetrack on that. We have now gotten AOTC. I don't know if we did it by the time we recorded last episode, but we only pulled 35 polls, which was not anywhere near, even after we cut it. I think we cut it down to 50.
You know, on Heroic, I thought it was kind of fun actually, but it was. I still have the same feeling of like it being kind of I mean, just the numbers back it up. It only took us 35 pulls when historically it takes us about 100.
Lithian, I thought tanking it was a lot of fun.
Tanking it was I enjoy tanking it because I actually have to do stuff and we have to be on top of things, but I just wish, I don't know. I wish it was a little bit more challenging sometimes. I don't know. Maybe that's weird. It seemed too easy.
Yeah. From a DPS standpoint, like pretty much the only thing we had to do if we weren't running bombs like Kilra was like just don't stand in bad stuff.
I have no idea what Kilra was doing, but he did great.
He did amazing. I mean, he was the only one doing anything. Otherwise, like I was like, dude, with the first night when we were pulling, the first phase is like so boring as a DPS. It's like, okay, just don't stand anything.
Well, okay,
like,
so
that's it.
Io, my impression is this is a healer's fight. So one, do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, it's actually pretty fun to heal because there's just constant damage and heal absorbs going out.
Yeah.
So
you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I did. I do think there are times when it sucks that I feel like people need to run like 5 or 6 healers on it sometimes just to make it easy. Like doing it with like a traditional 4 is still kind of rough. But yeah, I think if you're a healer and you actually enjoy doing the healing, I think it's fun. And it's predictable, but it's not the kind of predictable where you're comfortable
At
with
any
how
moment.
predictable it is. Yeah, exactly. Because you know, like, okay, heal, like the frontal's gonna come out, everyone's gonna get a heal absorb. All of a sudden, one person stands in like a circle on accident. You see their health go down. And you're like, oh shit, and then you just.
That was
So,
the
yeah,
hardest
there's,
part of the fight, in my opinion. That's where we like actually had to prog. Once we got past that, and once Lithian and I were not being idiots, we saw like let's call it. I think we moved immediately to like 50% and did the shield phase like right off the bat once we got into phase 2, air quotes. But even then, like once we were consistently getting into the final phase, it was like only a matter of pulls, 5 to 10 pulls, and we had it.
Yeah, and it's a fight where, you know, you get him to the point where he's on the sides and then he gets on himself and then you do like the spin and then you do the interrupt and you think, okay, this is really ramping up now. He's on the mech, it's gonna go super crazy. And it's actually like probably one of the chiller parts of the fight. You just gotta do like 2 mechanics the whole time. Just run away from him and just drop bombs and that's it.
Yeah, the only exciting part is when you run away from him. When everybody's leaving that trail behind and it's like just doing tons of damage and you're like, I gotta get away so fast. Like that part's fun, but there's nothing else fun in that fight.
I mean, like, you think about was it Nathria where we like that was fun.
Distinct phases,
Sire to Nathris though was an all-time great final boss.
It's an all-time,
and I mean even Farak was fun in some regard, and I enjoyed the different I feel like this one just wasn't. I don't know, just wasn't quite there. So.
It wasn't cooked all the way, and it definitely wasn't cooked on Mythic. I mean, we saw that everybody was expecting an extra phase.
Well, yeah. I think
so. We got like the best version of it, where we were expecting, you know, it to be pretty good, and it was pretty good, you know.
Well, okay, so back to your original point, Scrap. Then, you said the how beautiful the patch was. I think it's and you know, I'm assuming here, but I'm almost certain the people who build the major patches, the 0.1s, the 0.2s, are not the team that do cleanup or
but
the
I feel like
0.5s and 0.7s.
If the 0.5s and the 0.7s are bad, it's going to leave a sour taste in people's mouths. And then, you know, they're going to be remembering and they're like, ooh, I hope that we don't have a patch like the one with Gallywix. You know what I mean? And it's like, that sucks because they did put so much love and so much work into it for them to like sub in a different team who only does half measures and just serve stuff that's not cooked. So that's my disappointment.
The thing for putting raid aside, this Mythic Plus season has been great, right?
It's great. I love the resilient. Oh my god.
I love the resilient keys, and I love the dungeons and everything else. Like even I had love for Theater of Pain before, so you know, but like I don't want the raid to put a damper on the whole thing. It's just it's a big part of. I mean, we get our AOTC and then we kind of just farm a little bit and we do whatever, but you know, we're gonna have to get Dinars and all that stuff, so we'll figure that out. But
that's how, I mean, I bet it's even how you remember the patch. It's like, okay, you remember the Sarkareth patch. What dungeons were active then? Like, you don't know. Like, exactly. You remember it by the raid. Like, even if it's what we engage with less.
That's a really good point, Scrap. I can't say with certainty I know.
I could, but I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a nerd, so I'm not.
Then let's test you. Then, what were the dungeons in during the Sarkareth raid?
It was Hall of Infusion, Brackenhide Hollow, Uldaman, the Legacy Tier, whatever it was.
I thought Hall of Infusion was season 1, but I might be wrong.
No, Hall of Infusion was season 2.
Okay.
Season 2. It was Uldaman.
Wait.
Frank's pulling it up.
Oh my gosh.
My
point is,
Neltharis and Neltharion were in season 1 because I remember I kept getting those mixed up.
No, Neltharion's Lair was in season 2.
Oh, okay, maybe I right.
It was then the old ones were Neltharion's Lair, Freehold, Underrot, and what was the other one? Was it a BFA one or a
doesn't
Legion
matter.
No, it wasn't.
Matter. You're a big nerd, but
it was.
I could understand that.
It was Halls of Infusion, Uldaman, Neltharis, Brackenhide. It was Freehold, Underrot, Neltharion's Lair, and Vortex Pinnacle. God, was
Vortex
Vortex?
Pinnacle.
Oh my
Fuck,
God,
I
was
hate
that was?
Vortex Pinnacle.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
Jade
That
Temple
was-
was season 1, and we were like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jade Temple was terrible. Okay, it's starting to
It was
come back
rough.
to me now that he's mentioned it, where
But-
everything else falls. But
Like I'm pushing up my Guardian Druid, and I was running a Floodgate, and Floodgate is just to me, Floodgate's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy that
Mhm.
dungeon.
great dungeon, fantastic.
And you know, I'll remember that stuff, but I won't probably remember too much of the raid aside from the duos and a couple other a couple other bosses that were actually kind of fun. I
Garbage
like
boss.
Rick Reverb and things like that,
hmm
but I don't know.
I think we'll remember the trash boss, and maybe even the conveyor belt,
Trash.
and maybe probably Muggsy. But like, that's
One-arm
it.
bandit.
I don't know. One Arm
I mean,
Bandit was pretty good.
Oh yeah,
One-arm
One-Arm Bandit.
is fun.
I don't know. It's hard to say because it's happening now.
A lot
Like-
of the bosses were good bosses, but I don't think there was a single one that was like a slam dunk. Wow, that was a great boss. You know,
Yeah, I liked Muggsy. I think Muggsy was the closest to that.
like the boss, Princess Kai'Vez or whatever from last season.
That was
Like
the
that is
slam
one I'm
dunk
like, oh
last-
man, that's a
yeah.
slam dunk boss.
You know what one I always remember, Frank? From wait, was it the Razagath raid? I don't remember. But it was the spider boss.
The one I
That's
always
spider.
remember, but I don't
I
remember.
know, I don't remember which one it was in because it's so detached in my mind.
Okay.
It's like, fuck yeah, I love that boss.
So then, Lithian, you're saying, you know, the Mythic season's good, so it's fine. It's not a big deal. You're not worried.
Not worried about what's coming. I think that I'm hoping that they do take a step and take a beat and try to figure some things out. Communication's got to be better, but they're gonna come back and they're gonna produce. I'm not worried about it.
Well, speaking of communication, the big story this week is as we came into this patch, Dinars, question mark after question mark. Okay. They put the blue post, as I said earlier, that said, hey, we haven't forgotten. News is coming. I think it was like Friday of last week or something like that. And then this post came out. So I have just this is the original blue post about Dinars and what was happening. This is called, I think, Turbocharge or Turbo Boost. Okay, so this is their blue post. We're tuning things up a notch during the War Within Season 2 with increased rewards and improvements to help you gear up your warband with what we'll call Turbo Boost. During this event, Hero and Myth upgrade tracks will extend 2 upgrades, so from 6 to 8. The cap from Crest is lifted, and Valor Stones will become Warbound. That's a big point that I think has been lost in all of this.
Absolutely.
Huge, man.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. So let's just take a
everybody's
second.
excited about
That's
that.
good, right? Now the question is, what will the cap be? But either way, it's good. Mythic drop rates for Warbound until equipped gear will also be doubled for alts. Okay. A new weekly quest. Take up a new weekly quest to defeat 4 raid bosses from Liberation of Undermine. Earn 1 puzzling cartel chip per week with a maximum of 6 chips per character. So sounds like you have to earn per character. Raid Gear Vendor. Visit Consultant Rexel in Dornagal, located near the Great Vault, to purchase a select group of carefully curated items from Liberation of Undermine raids, such as weapons, trinkets, and other special items. Galliwix's ring, for example. Each item can be purchased with 3 puzzling cartel chips. Players may purchase Mythic and Hero gear, but will require the associated boss to have been defeated at least once in any difficulty to purchase Hero Track gear, and at least once in Mythic difficulty to purchase Myth Track gear. Okay? We'll come back to that in a second. Delve improvements. We're not going to worry about delve improvements, right?
Who cares?
Okay, okay.
Are you kidding me?
It's for the gymnastics guy.
about
What's the
Thomas?
guy's
No.
name?
Fuck
Yeah,
him. He's not.
Thomas.
There is one other thing to call out from this, though, and that is profession updates. So anything that was crafted via professions will have an item that you can call augmentation matrix, it looks like, that will up it an additional 6 item levels. I guess
that's nice.
just to keep up with the Myth Track gear changements, it sounds like, okay?
Okay, cool.
So,
Um,
I ask you, do you want to take us through what was the community's reaction to, most notably, this right here?
the Dinars. So I can't speak for the entire community, but it seemed like it was mostly negative.
From you, it was
Um,
for sure.
Yeah, especially the first day, it was pretty negative. Over time, well, over time it got I calmed down a little bit on it, but it was funny because doesn't actually affect me that much because we are doing the Mythic raid. The bosses I'll need to kill, I'll have killed by the time this comes out to get what I would want to get from it. So it doesn't affect me, but I felt bummed out for people that were really looking forward to getting something from this and then felt like they were kind of, I don't want to say betrayed, but felt like they didn't have the expectation set of what they should expect. Which we know there was none, but that's kind of my main issue is I feel like a lot of people leading up to the Dinars, to this particular announcement, had an idea of how these were going to work. And I don't know what that Skarsgård thing you posted was, Frank. I didn't get a chance to look back on that. And maybe at some point they
didn't even
say
watch
that.
It?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you're
so
dumb. Fucking Christ.
So at some point, maybe someone did say like, hey, this might not work how you expect, but the community overwhelmingly didn't see that for some reason and still thought it was going to work this way. I think they could have probably come out again and just been like, hey, just so you guys know, like, don't want to bum you out, but this might not work like you think it does. But that's not what happened. Okay. And you know what? That's okay.
So, a lot to unpack here. The first tweet I saw was from Tettles, okay?
Oh boy.
And
we love that guy.
I'm going to paraphrase this, and I apologize if I'm not 100% accurate, but my understanding is he was saying a significant, was the word I believe he used, disadvantage to the people who M+ and don't raid, because if you haven't killed the boss that you need to, so most of the stuff comes from Gallywix or Muggsy or One Arm Bandit, right? Yep. You're lucky, Ioski, because yours comes off of bump guy. What's his name?
Sprocketmonger, yeah.
Sprocketmonger,
Yeah.
bump guy, right?
Yep.
But most people will have to kill the final 3 bosses, which are, of course, the most difficult 3 bosses, to be able to get the trinkets that they want on Myth Track, okay? I want to point out that everyone will have access to the Hero Track gear because all you have to do is kill it on the LFR and then do the same for...
Kill it on normal.
Well, or LFR. They said any difficulty. To be able to get the Hero Track version of said trinkets, okay? And I just actually thought of another question we can answer while we're doing this, okay? So, it was the first day especially was a nonstop barrage of everyone saying this is bullshit. It's not fair, right? And again, to the point of saying I'm at a significant disadvantage because I don't Mythic raid, okay? Now, there were some dissenting views. I was one of those people because I said, well, hold on a second. I get, why you're disappointed because the communication, no, not even, the impression was this was going to operate almost identical to what it did in Dragonflight Season 4. Yeah?
Yeah.
However,
yeah, definitely. And if they should have said early on that it was not going to, if they were going to disappoint us,
So, I have some quotes here, okay? Skarsgård did a interview with Max.
Skarsgård, he works for them.
He is I don't know his title, but he is the baby of the renown track for the raid.
He works he works
for Blizzard.
He built, he's not just a streamer.
He was responsible for the renown track for the raid. He was responsible, I think, at least in part, to the upgrade track system. And I believe he also works on raids in general. Okay. Sorry, I don't want to, sidetrack us with chasing down his resume, but he is a big player at Blizzard, okay? He's a big dev guy, okay? And he did an interview with Max. This was right after they had removed it on the PTR from the renown track without warning, right? They just took it off, okay? And Max said, hey, what's going on? And these are some of the quotes I'm just going to call out from his interview, okay? So first thing he said was, hey, it's really hard to communicate this in a post, okay? It was implemented more as trying to send a message. He didn't elaborate, but my impression of it based on what he said was that we want to try something, all right? But he said, the problem is it is the most powerful thing we can do when we allow people to have effectively a blank check to pull their best gear. Those are my words, not his. His words were, it's the most powerful thing we can do, okay? He said that in other seasons like Dragonflight Season 4 and Shadowlands Season 4, they were truncated seasons, and they did this because in a rotating raid, you would see 1/3 less opportunities to get your trinket, and so they implemented it as a bad luck protection system in that kind of environment, okay? But, and this is a quote, in an actual season, it's very difficult to argue we should be doing this, and again, going back to his point of it's the most powerful thing we can do. Okay. Sorry, there's a Twitter war going on right now, and I'm getting notifications. All right. But he did clarify it's there to be bad luck protection. All right. And he gave an example. He gave an example of why doing this is difficult. He said, for example, in season 2 of Dragonflight, they implemented the upgrade track system. Okay. However, it was way too powerful. And one of the criticisms was the raid was too easy because we could upgrade our gear very quickly to get that boss down. All right. So his quote was like, implementing the upgrade system, we had to pull it back, but people were okay with this because they loved the system so much. It was like a unicorn, it was his quote, that we actually got away with maybe letting something get out of hand at first and then being able to reel it back in. But in general, and this is quote, we need to be slower and work it back to the correct spot so people don't get the wrong expectation. Okay. And he said, I also want to, again, my words, I'm addressing this is about subs quote that I hear. No, we don't want to cut off your journey to push and socialize with your guild just because we're trying to make it so that you stay subbed, okay? So again, some of those are my words interpreting. I just want to truncate what he had to, because Skarsgård is known for rambling for a very long time. In fact, this answer alone, I think, was like 6 minutes. But those are some of the messages. And if you want to see some of it, here we go. So Squishy put this up just an hour or two ago. A really good timeline of everything, and some of the Skarsgård quotes are right here. Okay, so you can go to Wowhead. I'll link that in the thing. So he effectively said we are going to rethink this. Okay, now he didn't say that he was leaning into the bad luck protection side of it and removing the free reign, but it is safe to say he was saying I'm worried this is too powerful. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's fair
what it sounds like.
assessment, but I think he should have definitely been. Somebody should have tempered our expectations somewhere along the line.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
That's all it would have taken. I think it's a fine. Let me finish really quick. I do think how it is implemented currently is a fine implementation of bad luck protection, but that's not what we've come to expect from Dinars, so it does feel like they're taking something away from us.
But here's the thing about the expectations around Dinars. Sorry, go on, Lithian.
Lithian, yeah.
Like, I'm not mad about any of this. The only thing that made me mad was the amount of time it's going to take to build enough Dinars to get anything. But
we'll get to that because they made an update. Did you see the update?
Wait, can I clarify? You get 6 total, and that's all you ever get. So you can only ever get.
They made an update. We're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Calm down. You're getting ahead of it. But my thing about the hero track versus mythic track, if I'm not doing mythic rating, I shouldn't get mythic gear. I'm okay with that, and I have no issues with that.
Yeah. We were all kind of in agreement about that when we talked about that before, when they were changing that you could only get mythic gear at 10 and up, and there was a huge outrage over that. They were like, oh my god, like what the hell, it's so hard to do that or something. And then I think we all kind of agreed that like mythic rating is significantly harder than mythic plus, just in terms of like organization.
So I actually asked this to Twitter, all right?
X.
And now, in fairness, I don't have any followers on Twitter, so I didn't get a lot of engagement on this like we did on YouTube for most of us. However, I did ask people, I said, what key bracket do you think is like equivalent to a mythic raid boss, right? Now, in fairness, there are different varying degrees of difficulty of mythic raid bosses, but my intention was to say like the Gallywixes, the Mugsies, and the 100 Bandits, right?
The ones that
he did answer that, yeah. And I'll get to his answer in a second because I think he's got a good gauge on it. But some people were answering that they thought 12s and 13s were the equivalent of difficulty for those bosses, right?
No.
And again, it was I think tied with 17 to 19s. I think was the other one it was tied with.
You're an idiot if you think of 12, 13.
So that was surprising. I mean, now I asked, he's quiet. He's like, oh god, I thought no.
The last 3.
No. I was gonna say, I don't think it's wrong in the sense of like a 12 to 13, what it's capable of doing damage wise. I think I think they're saying in terms of like what it's outputting, it's like a 12 to 13, but its difficulty is like entirely different nuance. Like a 12 and 13, like maybe you're getting one shot by damage you need to hit a defensive. In a raid, you're not necessarily getting one shot, but you need to be doing certain mechanics or the whole raid might die. So it's kind of a different, it's a different vibe, but it's tough to kind of like equate it to key level, I think.
even if we take out, like, if we just do number to number, right? I think that there's also this expectation of like, okay, 1, filling the roster. 2, building the roster to be perfect for the boss based on tanks, healers, and needing a certain DPS or needing a certain type of damage output, right?
Yep.
There's also the expectation, as you said, Ioski, of like, okay, well, if one person fucks up, it is a wipe for everyone, usually nowadays in raiding.
Yeah.
Whereas in a Mythic Plus dungeon, especially in a 12, right, we could have someone die in the fight, and that's 20% of the entire group, and we're still fine. Like, it's okay.
Dude, we almost timed that 14 Dark Flame Clef when we had like 20 deaths. And then we went on to smash it later with like way less.
Dark Flame Clef is easy.
But it was a 14. This guy's saying a 12 to 13. I mean, it was a 14, and like I was dead from the first second of a boss, and I died like fucking 8 times that day. I was not playing very well. I do want to say we did come back and smash it.
Yes.
But we did almost fucking. I had to clear it. I had to clear my name. But we did almost fucking time it with almost 20 deaths in that 14 Dark Flame Clef.
Okay, so irrelevant, right? That's our side. Like, I just want to let you know that people did think that they were equivalent of 12s and 13s for some reason. But
those people. So what I want is you should just put up a poll on YouTube and say,
yes, I'll put it up.
Equivalent of 12s and 13s, and I do Mythic Raid. And then 12 to 13, I don't Mythic Raid.
Ioski is the only one that has experience in it, and you've only cleared 4 bosses, Ioski?
We're cleared 4, and we're about halfway through Sprocket. We're at 46%, I think.
Okay.
I'm going to say that maybe okay, I don't Mythic Raid, but based on other Mythic Raids that I have been invited to, like, to the detriment of the person inviting me, the first 2 to 3 bosses, I would say maybe a 13.
Yeah, negligible.
Yeah, 12, 13. That's fine. Somebody could die. Somebody could be embarrassing.
They're
yeah. That's So that's just based on my experience with other ones where I was like invited and it did terribly, and we still cleared bosses. You know what I mean? So like 12, yeah, okay. But these last 3, it sounds like these are not a fucking joke. And like the people who I know who actually get cutting edge are few and fucking far between. And I know a lot of really good players who don't get it. So.
I did some research, right? And it was a small sample size. I pulled 100 of the last season's 1,200 people who got titles, a little over 1,200. I pulled 100 people, and only about 40% of them had even completed cutting edge and were able to get their title, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like Dorky, for example. Dorky, I think, finished 6th overall. He was like the 6th best player score-wise in Mythic Plus last season. And he did not kill what's her name? Queen he didn't clear Ansarek last season, right? Now that might have been because he quit, that might have been because, all sorts of different variables. But my point is, though, it's like this guy's doing 20 keys in the season that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And is still not able to rally a raid group of 20 people and carry them on his back, arguably. He's a really good tank.
Yeah.
To get across the finish line there. Again, it's a different raid scenario. I know that, but like there's questions we can pull from all these people complaining, but there's a couple things I want to lay down before we even get to that point. So first thing is, I don't understand why people also had the expectation that this is how all Dinar chips work, because while Dragonflights did this, where you could upgrade it 16 tracks, season 4 of Shadowlands did not have that. We were not able to get myth track or myth versions, because there was no tracks then, myth versions of the raid trinkets. We were only able to get heroic, because what you had to do is, if you wanted the myth version of a raid trinket, you had to go into mythic raid and kill 20 bosses. I think it was some stupid high number.
Yeah.
Now, arguably, that still could be done, because you could pug 2 bosses a week and slowly build it up. Yes, right. But it still wasn't like something that was very easy, and to the point, what everyone's saying is respecting of their time to have to go in and pug 2 raid mythic bosses a week, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a normal expectation for that. Like, okay, here's how the Dinars worked in Shadowlands, and then they were arguably better for us in Dragonflight, and then they took stuff away in War Within.
Yeah.
You can understand why people be upset about that. People are always upset when you take stuff away.
Here's another reason why they can be upset, because this is fair. Again, miscommunication. Before it was removed, and when the thing was announced, this is what Blizzard's Blue Post said. Similar again to Dragonflight Season 4's Booleans and Shadowlands Season 4's Dinars, they are intended to have their own upgrade track, which will mean they scale to the maximum of rank or maximum rank of 14, given enough crests and valor stones. This could
Well, that's
change.
just spelled in fucking English, dude.
Hold on. This could change before launch, but the intent is for those to be fully upgradable and usable by anyone that reaches this point, and not locked or conditioned to certain difficulties.
That's a fucking smoking gun. Lock them up. Like I feel like they say,
Even though they said we can walk this back.
They said we can walk this back, but the intent is for them to be fully upgradable. I
Sure.
mean, that's just a lie. Then make them fully upgradable if that's your intent.
Okay, yes. But this was written before they made the decision to pull them out to begin with.
You gotta, if they already put this out in writing in stone, they have to stand by it.
Well, no.
I think.
No.
Yeah, they do.
Flippin', why not?
They do.
I mean, this was written January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
It was super early.
It was the day that
and they were
PTR
still-
went live.
This is the
Right.
over-promising, though. They promise too much.
Well,
you know?
Hold on. Is this a promise?
I don't
Yeah.
think they're. I think they're just saying, "Hey,
This
we
could
are
change.
going." Yeah.
They say
We're-
this could change, but the intent is for them to be fully upgradable. They didn't say the intent could change. Did the intent change? Because they didn't say that. I'm just saying.
They're still adding. For
Literally the
hero
same sentence,
track,
Scott.
they're still adding two ranks, right? So they're trying to split, but
Scott's
it's
so stupid.
things change. They say it could change. Things
Yes,
change,
yes.
and it's fine. It's
This is
fine.
actually,
Yeah.
I think, uncharacteristic of them to say this could change.
Is it? I would like to see
I don't know,
stats
maybe
on that.
not. That could be just, maybe, but I feel like this is not something we could see normally in a thing. But anyways, this was
I'm
written
looking for
before
it now.
Skarzard. This was written before it was taken out, right? And then, of course, the Skarzard interview happened. So let's keep going through the timeline, okay? This is their
Yeah.
follow-up saying,
Outrage.
so there was the outrage, okay?
The
This
outrage.
post
I love
came
it.
out.
That's like a title
There
of,
was the outrage,
of the
okay?
article.
And then the next day, Blizzard came back with the follow-up, okay? We've been closely following your feedback on our recent announcement of the upcoming Turbo Boost event. We understand that while most of the benefits of the event, such as double drop rate on Warbound and until equipped, extra upgrade tiers available on existing items, will be available immediately, the prospect of waiting 3 additional weeks to purchase select items from consultant Rexel is a frustrating one. In light of that, we're changing the structure of the quests for puzzling cartel chips so that the first week's quests will now reward 3 immediately, enough to purchase 1, immediately. The 6 quest progression will continue as planned after that, allowing each character to earn up to 9 chips, up from 6, and purchase up to 3 items from Liberation of Undermine. We also want to take a moment to offer some context on the goals of the cartel chip currency and how they compare to past experiments such as the Dinars system in Shadowlands, a natural point of comparison for many players. In Shadowlands and Dragonflight Season 4, there were many this was a very compressed season timetable that rotated through multiple raids, making it extremely unlikely for any player to get a particular raid drop. We introduced the Dinars system as a primary means for acquiring specific chase items that would otherwise be unobtainable for most players. Those seasons those seasons also weren't about progression, but rather farm from the start, letting players re-experience familiar content from earlier in the expansion with updated rewards. And of course, they came at the very end of the respective expansion with a full power reset just on the horizon, and little to worry about in the long-term implications of giving players access to gear with a power level several tiers above their normal rewards. And I think what they mean by normal rewards is what they would normally get.
Yeah, it's a little rude way to say it.
So real quick, go back to the other one real quick, the January 17th one. I just want to see something real quick.
Just seeing if Holly Longdale posted it.
Yeah, right. Which similar again. Okay, so they say this is from Blizzard, right? Who wrote this similar again to? So they write similar again, but then in this next post, they're like, a lot of players equate it to, but they said it
that's
themselves as what it was
accusatory.
similar to.
This is dripping with passive aggression. And if they're going to do blue posts, my number one thing that I demand from them is they change it from the turbo boost, because calling this a turbo boost is hilarious.
no,
Just call it an average boost.
Scrap has
So-
brought the very first opinion opinion about that into play.
The other gear,
It's-
the other
they
Cares?
need
Who
to.
cares?
the tracks are going up,
Yes.
so that's where the boost is coming from. You're getting more item level
This is-
altogether, no
I just
matter
feel
what.
like it ties into them. Like this is kind of a little passive aggressive. It's like we don't know where you got the idea, and then just like you said, it's like they literally gave us the idea, and then also
don't-
saying like
hold on,
the
hold
stuff
on.
that you could get naturally. Like it's like, well, you're not good enough to get that shit, so stop complaining. And also
where do
playing a
they,
tournament.
hold on.
A
how they
natural point
compared-
of comparison
Yeah.
for many
How they
players.
compare to past
For many
experience such as
players.
Dinar systems, a natural point of comparison to many. How is that
Yeah.
passive aggressive?
They're putting
think-
it on us. They're like, why did you think
Okay,
that?
I think y'all are twisting
It's not
words
twisting
around.
shit.
You
Read
are.
between the
Y'all are-
lines.
You're the people that
Yeah.
get a text from someone and read like, "Oh my god, they're mad at me," when it's just like, "No, I'm at the grocery store. Are they mad at me?"
No, I'm the person who sends text thinking I hope they know I'm mad at them when I send this.
Oh my
Well,
god.
I don't know if it's passive aggressive or not, but I do feel like that language was a little weird. But I could see where Lithian's saying we could be looking too deep into it. So
that I think is a stretch.
I don't see it.
Anyways, okay. So the middle of the war within season 2, however, presents a very different situation. Puzzling card chips were designed primarily as a bad luck protection, allowing players who have been chasing specific raid items without success to have a guaranteed path to earning them. Now, I want to call it real quick. They didn't. Okay, I thought they said were originally designed. Okay, good. Never mind. I made that word up. They also provide a path for players who have only done the normal version of the raid to get a few guaranteed hero items without undermining a core motivation for the challenge and coordination required in Mythic raid progression. We also need to be mindful of how we will transition into next season, giving players who don't normally engage in high-end content across access to item levels of 680 plus could essentially obsolete those slots for season 3. We
By the way,
are
need to balance those better.
that's where I said normal instead of LFR. That's where I got that from, by the way.
what the normally.
No,
No, they
it
said that normal gives her.
It said normal gives
Oh,
hero
well,
track, not
Yeah, they-
LFR.
They said
but
any,
whatever, it doesn't matter.
God knows what they mean anymore.
Don't
because
you
that's
think
clear.
don't you think if you're using a mythic track trinket all the way through season 3, that's a huge tuning issue?
No, because scrap the Twitter fight that I'm seeing unfold in front of me is about that. I'll get to that later. We'll come across that
I
later.
want to know because
Okay,
I can't
part
believe
of the-
they're even
part of the
I
putting
problem
want
is
to
that.
this.
know.
So people are using Spy Master's Web, the trinket from last season, as an example of why you need a Mythic raid, okay? Now, there are definitely some classes where it was like a clear-cut winner, Arcane Mage being one of them, to the point where someone came up and said, yeah, Spy Master's Web is a perfect example. My response to him was twofold. One, Spy Master's Web is actually still best in slot for me, even at item level 626, right? And
Yeah.
two, the difference between Spy Master's Web on Mythic and Spy Master's Web on Heroic, the two item level differences, is only a 0.5 damage difference for me, okay? DPS increase. It is a difference. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm just saying, like, yes, that's been like an age-old problem with you need to nerf this stuff going into a new season, right? In fact, they even nerfed Spy Master's Web coming into the season and it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Frank,
Cersei's
real quick
Circlet
before
needs
we-
to be nerfed, right? Like, there's all sorts of
Before we
problems.
get
Yeah.
too off topic, how come Arcane doesn't use Cersei Circlet or like and they still
Cersei's
use Spy
Circlet was so
Master's Web?
bad that the second the patch came out, they said throw it in the trash.
That's the guy
What-
Frank who's saying I only got a 1% like boost from
That's
that.
crazy.
Like,
That you can still
Well-
use a 6.626 trinket and not Cersei Circlet. That's awesome.
it's almost like tuning is a huge
It's-
fucking problem in this game.
Well, yeah, of course it's 39 specs. Of course it's a problem.
I know, but I'm just like, yeah, it's a problem.
Okay, can I just say, I'm going to say this now because I'm sure it's going to come up again, right? My biggest pet peeve of people armchair quarterbacking, how like they would just go in and tune the knobs better. Like it's
Just do
some
the knobs.
fucking simple thing to do, right?
Let's do this.
I can't even begin to imagine how hard it is to tune. This might be, I think, the hardest game to tune ever, right? Because you have so many spinning plates, it's out of control.
Bro hasn't seen
And
the Path of Exile
honestly,
talent tree.
Like
I'd still
The-
argue
if you
that's
look at
less
high
because
keys right now-
that has so many knobs. It's easy to tune.
if you look at high keys right now too, I feel like it's pretty diverse. Like yeah, there's a meta, but I feel like you see a lot of different
wanna look real
people
quick?
and
Let's
like
look.
yeah,
In the level
'cause,
we're at, definitely.
the two highest North American keys, I'm pretty sure, like I think I heard Dorky say,
Oh,
were like
no.
Holy Paladin
Arcane,
and
no.
Mistweaver.
Jesus Christ.
The two
right?
highest North American keys. I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
Hunters are out completely. No.
Marksman's
Oh,
pretty good.
sorry, I
too.
didn't see them over there. Oh, that's Marksman. Good for
Yeah.
them. What happened to Beast Mastery? That's gotta be
Um,
Beast Mastery, Frank. That's gotta be BM.
That's Beastmaster right there.
Where's mine?
24. Survival, it's going to be like over here somewhere. It's
Oh.
so small I can't
All
mouse
your
over it.
enemies.
Yeah, the
L-
arcane
L-
shift is insane.
Yeah,
Ellismere
six.
is a how do I say this? He's not the norm.
Dude, he plays with Yoda, Hopeful, and JPC. He's got like
Yeah.
a stacked ass team right there.
Yeah, he has a stacked team. So yeah,
He's a
Actually-
great
for
player
sure.
too.
Actually, I haven't
He
heard
is.
Ellesmere say anything about this. Have you, Ioski?
About what?
The
Sorry.
Dinar issues.
No, I don't think that's kind of I haven't heard him say anything. He hasn't said anything in a while. I think people got on him for after the Oracle disc priest nerfs, and I feel like he might be laying low because I think he was,
I got what I
was
wanted.
like
I'm
a-
gonna shut up.
He
Yeah.
was a big whistleblower, and people are probably sending like
Well,
threats to him
people,
and stuff.
yeah, people were kind of being, I think, a little nasty to him. So he decided
Okay.
not to post
Like I'm
anything.
keeping my mouth shut on this
Okay,
shit.
let's keep this train on tracks. Okay. So this event is an experiment on our part aimed at giving a wide range of players a boost towards achieving their progression, collection, or power goals as we move into the second half of the season. Your feedback is deeply appreciated, and we'll be listening and watching closely to inform our future plans. Okay. So that was their response to the chaos. Now, I do want to call out that someone on Twitter named Katsa did a little poll, and that was only 430 votes, but that's a decent amount of votes. And I was a little surprised to see that people aren't that, it wasn't like as divisive as I thought it would be. It's split 55-44 of people, the majority agree should have access to full BIS by the end of the season versus only loot should be locked behind people who can clear the content. Now, we've heard Technique's opinion on this, as I'm
I
sure.
didn't hear it. Can you?
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I missed it.
You don't know. No, I'm saying in general. We know what Technique's
Yeah,
opinion on this
of
stuff is,
course.
right? He always wants to have difficult content locked.
Yeah, he wants. He should
yeah.
love this shit.
Okay. Squishy again did a great recap on this. So, like for example, Shadowlands Season 4, it was bad luck protection and a slight gear progression due to the ability to killing any mythic boss to upgrade. Dragonflight Season 4 was bad luck protection and gear progression. And then, of course, Season 2 of War Within is only bad luck protection, okay? So, we got, let's just jump into it. We got a ton of questions that were posed through Twitter and through our own discussions. Ioski, you and I differ on our opinions of this. Is that right?
I know we've had some discussion on the communication. I don't know if we differ too much on the other stuff though. We'll have to see. We'll go through it and kind of see where we stand, I guess.
Okay. So here are the main talking points. I might think of more as we go, and if you guys have any more you want to talk about, let's talk about it. But there are a couple points that we should just address as to what we think is. I want to answer this in the way that is healthy for the game. Okay? Is that fair?
Yep.
If you disagree that it's actually not healthy for the game, or it is healthy for the game, but okay. So the first one, we'll talk about Tettle's tweet, which is, I am severely disadvantaged. Okay? What do you think, Ioski? Let's start with you.
I disagree, and I think the numbers pretty much prove that. If we're talking about, like, in the past, if there was a BIS trinket in Raid for whatever I was playing, I was stoked to have a hero version of it because I knew I would never get a myth version. I wasn't mythic rating then, so I was okay with that because I'm like, hey, this is the best version of this I can get, and it's still a really good trinket. If you go on Blood Mallet or Questionably Epic, wherever you get your trinket info from, and look at a lot of the BIS trinkets for classes, like it's the best usually by like any point within 20 eye levels. So it's not even like you're really at a disadvantage having a weaker one. Yeah, you're gonna do more damage if you have the stronger one, but it not so much so that it beats having like a weaker version. Like there's no myth version that's so much more powerful than a hero version. I think that's okay. There's like no mythic version that's more powerful. Like the only thing I can think of is Mr. Pick Me Up, but that's a completely different situation.
Well,
for
and for M+, I feel like sometimes people also just want the damage trinket, right? I mean, we've had discussions of this before. All right, why did I flashbang everyone? Okay, so
Zoom in on that. I can't read it. It's too small.
Oh, I can't zoom in because I cut it for the podcast.
Okay, that's
you can ask
fine.
questions and I'll answer it. Okay.
Ask questions.
The long and short of it is, Scrap. Okay, I saw this constant. I'm at disadvantage. I'm disadvantaged. Right. I wanted to know theoretically how disadvantaged each spec was going to be. Okay. So I took a page from Lo-Fi Banshee's book and I said, I'm going to put some data together. I went to Blood Mallet and I pulled the sims for every trinket, comparing them to their heroic version and their myth track version, okay? I did also track to see if there were trinkets that were considered best in slot that were from Mythic Plus. So is there a better trinket in Mythic Plus? And then I notated here in this column, like, is it their first best in slot or second best in slot? And then I also noted if I saw a class had just like generally terrible trinkets in raid. Okay. So like maybe they had one, but the next 4 were all best in slots from Mythic Plus. Okay. So here's what I found. All right. The the best example of where you want to have the Mythic version of the trinket as opposed to the heroic was for Frost DKs. And it's a 1.92% increase to power, having both Mythic versions of the trinket instead of the heroic versions.
That's a severe disadvantage.
Yeah, severe.
Do you okay, so do you believe that?
No,
No,
this is
no.
stupid.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. Hold on, I'm gonna get the average real quick. Oop.
I don't want to disagree
can't
with
do
the
that.
data. I'm disagreeing with the principle largely.
Okay. So okay. Are you
And I think-
disadvantaged then?
No, I would say absolutely not. Shut up.
Lithium?
No, I think that's a dumb statement that he made, but
I will say these are just trinkets. Like, isn't there's literally a weapon called best in slot?
Mm-hmm. I didn't do
When
the, I didn't do the
people go
weapon
into that.
because I just like didn't like. Yes, there is, and of course
Yeah.
you could argue
That
that's
There's a significant
one.
amount of power. But I mean, when I think significant amount, the number in my mind is like 5%. So
yeah, I don't think it's, I don't think it's gonna be that much.
we'll crunch the numbers on that later, and Frank will tweet it out.
Yeah. But you can see anyone that has an N here, this is like where it's like, okay, these specs are really worried about it because their trinkets mostly come from raid, right?
Yeah.
But I went a step further, and last
Oh my
night,
gosh, Frank.
I'm not gonna pull it up because like the data's all over the place, but I think I already said this, like I pulled 100 of the title getters in North America. It was random. I pulled all over, but I did pull the top 20 as well. And only, I think it was 44% of them had done cutting edge. And I think it was only 41% of them had a mythic trinket in their inventory when they
Mythic
were
trinket from raid? Because
from
you could
raid.
get a mythic.
Sorry,
M plus.
from raid.
Okay, yeah.
From raid. Yeah. There were some classes that were clear that this was like they needed to get it. Mage, I think Frost Mage was not, but the other 2 mages were. And I think DKs were also like if they didn't have transmitter, I think it was. Is that right?
yeah.
Oscar? Is that right?
Yeah,
Neurotransmitter
was one of their good
There-
ones.
There were a couple that like
Neurotransmitter.
that had it, but like elemental enhancement, prop paladin, shadow priest, disc priest. Actually, I don't think shadow was that big list, but like the number 1 player was a shadow priest. I don't think a majority of them even had a myth raid trinket. Most of them had M plus trinkets. Okay.
Yeah, most healers M plus trinkets last year were BIS and not Mythic Raid.
That obviously could
Or
be
raid at
different.
all.
I should put the caveat
Yeah.
that could be very different between seasons. Okay. But
Like this season.
well, so okay, that was my question to you because I pulled this season right here, right? And only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the 39 specs. Well, sorry, I didn't pull tanks and healers, so that's not fair.
Well, yeah, the healers. I mean, I was talking about specifically, but yeah, I think a lot of M plus trinkets are BIS this time.
So for healers or for DPS, what are you referring to?
For DPS, because I know for Paladin, it's what the Pacemaker and the Signet, the Priory Signet. So those are 2.
Those are both mythic plus, yeah.
Yeah, so I meant for
Oh.
healers because I know most healers need Mr. Pick Me Up.
Yeah.
Like Windwalker wants House of Cards. Unholy DK probably wants House of Cards, and there's probably a bunch of other classes that want House of Cards.
I want House of
But-
Cards.
But yeah, having the hero version versus the mythic version isn't going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like for Unholy, House of Cards was only a 0.7% upgrade on that trinket alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And their second best trinket is from Mythic Plus. So like this 1% upgrade right here is irrelevant.
I can't remember. I think Signet and House of Cards are kind of similar. Is that right? So, and House of Cards is just like slightly better.
For survival?
Well, House of Cards.
No, just like they're similar. They do similar things.
Well, House of Cards also is, and
Oh,
this is
I'm
simmed, right? So this is not actual application. But House of Card also requires you to stay in combat as long as possible. Now, again, if you're playing at
No,
this
that's
level,
That's Ayakazan.
No, House of Cards does too. Because if you hit House of Cards, it adds an additional 300 mastery every time you use it again after that, and it drops.
It's not...
Yeah. Eye of Kazan, I think will run, and I think House of Cards does this too. But Eye of Kazan will give you like I think a 10-second buffer between pulls, so like you're still at least able to keep it juggled. Now that said, this is irrelevant because these type of players, the top, title players, they're just like constantly moving and constantly.
There's no downtime.
No delay.
Yeah.
Right. They're
Always be cast.
They're probably doing trash and bosses at the same time. It's irrelevant, right?
That's right.
But there is some caveat to that. So like, Rhett seems to be the one that's like, okay, this is the biggest problem for them because they're single one. Actually, no, sorry, their number 1 trinket's in Mythic Plus, but their number 2 trinket is a 1.2 upgrade. So like, this is the biggest single upgrade for Rhett.
Nobody cares about Red Palace.
So I didn't ask you, so I'll let you answer. I'm going to switch back to the thing, but I ask you, what do you think this is a severe disadvantage?
No.
Okay. What? And Scrap said 5%. What would you guys say is a severe disadvantage?
I am not really comfortable answering for sure because I feel like you're talking about millions compared to like what's like 1% of like a million or like what's 2%, but 5% is probably I don't know. I don't feel comfortable enough speaking on that.
I'm just basing this on the fact of that when they do class tuning, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, they're getting a 5% like aura buff, and that they feel the need to like implement that.
4% was enough to push Arcane into the meta spot.
Well, they did it 8%, and then they did another 5%, didn't they?
4.
So it was 8 and then 5.
8 and 4.
Oh, 8 and 4, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
But they weren't meta with the 8. Not yet, at least. Maybe people were toying with it, but...
But there was more than just the 4% they added, wasn't there?
No.
It wasn't just 2 aura buffs. That you had balancing also.
Well, they changed Sun Fury, but that was irrelevant. That's not Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5% is probably significant. It seems like based on the math I pumped in.
What's 5%? Did you just do?
You got a little
computer
numbers.
What's 5% of 3 million? And then
but here's the thing.
A bunch over
I want to put this on something tangible, right? I want to put this on something tangible because this seems to be about the title push. This seems to be about the 0.1%, right?
Yeah.
Do you think anyone is not going to be able to get title because of this implementation?
No. If they're gonna get title, they're gonna get title.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't gonna change the fact that those folks are gonna get title.
I think so.
I ask you.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think Lo-Fi Banshee also said something about how if you look at the past like however many seasons, it's always the same players too. There's just such a big skill discrepancy.
Megaset has titled every single season on Mistweaver, and Mistweaver's only been meta 1 season.
Yeah, so I don't think sure if you're a player of that caliber and you can't get you could probably do more with that 1.9% than a player who isn't, but I don't think you're stuck in 12s, 13s. I don't think you're getting title just because you got
well, yeah, you're not even close.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay, 40% of people didn't even title with Mythic trinkets. Again, that's a very loose 40% because there's a margin of error in there. And we're arguing that it's not enough to warrant you not getting title. Now, we should say, because I think it's unfair to just like close that door entirely, there are people who are playing on the cusp of title, right? The people who like barely got their foot in the door, that could lose their spot in the title range because, one person just happens to sneak their way in. But I don't think Blizzard should be concerning themselves with not only the 0.1% and that, realm, because again, as you said, that's a skill issue, not a gear issue.
Yeah.
But also really the 0.1% of the 0.1% who missed the title because of this quote unquote unfair system, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like if you're determined enough, what we're going to see a lot of coming out of this is that people are going to be buying more Mythic raid runs, right? Because like if I'm on the cusp of title and I just need to kill what's the slot machine guy? One-arm bandit.
One-arm bandit.
I'm just going to buy a one-arm bandit kill.
That's okay. That's another thing.
Towards the end of the season, it's not that expensive,
Tettle's also in that rant was talking about how he feels like he was saying like I've got 1 million gold. What else? to get a mythic run done, right?
Yeah.
But why didn't he feel that way last season?
Well, because he wasn't guaranteed the gear, whereas here he's guaranteeing himself
If-
a piece of gear that he needs.
I think,
by
and
one
granted, it
kill.
has to drop, but like I think when if you pay enough, you can say like, hey,
But you're
if
not
this
guaranteed
drops,
the
I want.
drop.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it could be something you could pay for, right? Like you could say, hey, I'll keep coming until I get the drop.
I can understand the difference between
was
wanting
that
to do
important.
it then and wanting to do it now. Because you're saying
No,
like,
no.
oh, I pay $1 million gold and get a chance at getting the drop, and then I might have to do it a couple more times. This time it's like I
Yes.
pay $1 million gold and I'm guaranteed the piece
I
of
agree with
gear.
that. But what
no
I'm
matter
saying
if
is
it's like
he's not
different.
doing it because he's like, oh, I'm guaranteed. Like, because that would be a point of excitement. Like, oh, cool. I just have to pay $1 million and now I'm guaranteed it. Right? That'd be a
Yeah.
good thing, right?
Well, I mean, the better
my-
thing would be just to be guaranteed.
No, I know that, but that wasn't on the table, right? That wasn't on the table season 1. That wasn't on the table of season 3 last
Put it on
season.
the table and then they push it
So,
off the table.
anyways, the point is like he's not even saying that. He's saying I have to do this. I have to do this to stay competitive, right?
No, I think the only people worried about this are people who suck. Like,
I have no idea about
Wow.
Tettles. I mean, he's obviously always in
Tettles
that
suck.
range, and he's
He was-
a good player.
he-
No,
yeah.
I mean, no,
He was-
he's a good player. He's
He was
a really good
crashing
player.
out. He was crashing. I don't know what was that
if
about.
you're crashing out
But-
over 2%,
So,
you're
I
crashing out. Like that is it.
I think Tettles doesn't like raiding, and I don't think
He
it's
doesn't.
convenient
He
for him to raid.
He
So
doesn't
I
like
think
reclear. He hates reclear.
I think he would just love an opportunity to not have to do that, and that's probably where a lot of his feelings come from. But for him specifically, like I can understand a lot of other people that we're seeing that also have this idea are not even in the cusp of being where he is.
Sure.
So I don't know what they're
Yeah.
complaining
But
about.
let's play out a scenario here, right? Because if it was that important, right? Ayaski, you are in a mythic raid. You are hoping, if not expecting, that you will have cutting edge by the time the season is wrapping up, right?
Yep.
Is Tettles not in a space? Now, granted, there's obviously a lot of time commitment, but it is prog for you. It's not like you're reclearing and you're doing boring stuff. You are challenging yourselves. Is Tettles in a space where he can't find a non-Hall of Fame guild where he could probably get them to commit that like he doesn't have to do all the nights of raiding or whatever because he's Tettles? And you know, find some sort of like an area, sweet spot of like, okay, this is the raiding that I want to do, or I want to do mythic raiding, but I don't want to do the reclears because I don't think you guys are going to worry about reclears too much after you get cutting edge. Is that right?
So for them, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. This is my first time with
Mhm,
them.
mhm.
I think if people want the gear, we should do it because it's like a team thing, and we should help people get what they
Sure,
want.
of course. I
if
agree
we're
with
working
that. I agree
together.
with
But
But it wouldn't be a
if
problem now with the
inter-
Dinar system.
if for some reason like we were done and everyone said, hey, we don't want to do reclears, I don't think that would be an issue.
So, if this was such a I'm at a disadvantage, I feel like he would feel this. I got to find some way, right? And forget paying for it because he doesn't want to do that, right? That's fine. But like,
Yeah.
there's some way that you can find your way into a guild to get that critical. I need this loot.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then there's another side of the argument where it's like, well, Blizzard's not respecting our time. Okay. So this is what I've seen most directly with people responding to me on Twitter is like, it's not a respect of my time that I want to do M+, and in order to be successful at M+, I now have to do a raid.
Frank, the way they make money is by not respecting our time. They want to keep us sub for a long time. If they give us the best gear early in the season, who knows how long the season will go, mid-season, then people aren't going to play out the whole season because, like, what are they chasing, So, like, saying that they don't respect your time is really fucking stupid because, like, yeah, no, they want you to they want you to stay subbed the entire season.
Well,
so,
and
of course, they don't respect your time.
And I even feel it's like the inverse of that. Like, you're not respecting the time that people put into get that gear. Because you're just saying, I want for free, please. Gimme.
Yeah. I mean, definitely I definitely think the disadvantage thing, you're not a disadvantage. Respect your time. Yeah, duh. Like, I think these are not valid reasons to be upset about this, personally.
Yeah, duh.
Anything else I ask you or Lithium you want to add to that?
No.
Okay. Point number 2. It's not fair. People are arguing it's not fair that the Raiders get that gear at Myth Track, whereas the M+ers, again, respecting of time and etc., don't.
I'll speak to this because people who haven't watched every episode don't know that we kind of had this discussion when they release what track they were going to release at each level of Mythic Plus, because previously it was like 7+ would give you Mythic in the vault, I think, or something like that. And then
long time ago, yeah.
yeah, but they rolled it back and they said only 10+, and people were really upset. They were like, "Oh my god, like it's not fair that Mythic raiders get like so much better shit than us." And we all agreed that like, well, yeah, it's so much harder, so much bigger of a time investment, like such a bigger deal. And we even hashed this out at the beginning of this. Like they should get something more than people who just Mythic Plus. Like, I'm sorry, like. Otherwise, why would you ever Mythic raid except to just like do hard stuff? I mean, people do that, but like
this was a point I brought up to someone, right? Because they said, forgive me, I'm gonna be paraphrasing this, but the effectiveness was, I was like, okay, you're a dev and you get to make the change, right? And they said, yeah, we'll make it so like 15s, plus 15s give the equivalent trinkets and all that stuff. You know, forget the power that is unbalanced from raid to Mythic, right? Because that is part of the equation, but let's just forget that for a second. That if you do plus 15s, you will get that gear, right? And my response was, congratulations, you just killed Mythic raiding. And here's why. Because if you kill the idea, you know, because there's two reasons to Mythic raid. One is the accomplishment, the challenge, right? And two is the gear. Is that a fair assessment?
yeah, I think
That's pretty much
killing
it.
Mythic raid is a bit dramatic, but
What?
I do think
No. But I was being dramatic for the sake of it. Here's
yeah,
why.
yeah.
My
I think
point was
most
this.
people, and I might be wrong. I would curious what IOs think. I think most people do it to get like CE.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like that's why most people do it, not
But
to
here's
get
the
a
thing.
specific trinket.
If you, yeah, but that's like part of the journey, right? Like, as I get this reward of having the Mythic trinket, right?
But you might not get the trinket though.
No, but here's the thing, Scrap. If you had your best in slot in raid, and you didn't get it through the re-clears of Cutting Edge getting back to Gallywakes, which, by the way, most people don't even re-clear. They just like lock it and try it, keep going, right?
Yeah.
At least now they do, and that's not always the case. You didn't get your trinket. Like, yeah, the Cutting Edge is worth it, and it's for the fun. Like, that's the same reason why people play the Elden Ring games and stuff like that. But it would suck to say, well, damn, I kind of wish I did get that though, because that's like entirely luck based. You know, it just didn't drop for you, and yada yada.
I think that bad luck protection is needed, and I think this is a good response to it. But just the entire branding of this.
Yes, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Okay, we'll get to it.
Okay, so, but it's agreed that it's either for the achievement, it's either for the challenge, or it's for gear, which maybe not so many people worry about the gear as much, because, you know, once they get it done, like, who cares?
That would be a good poll, Frank. It's like, if you were in a Mythic guild, what would you be
I don't have the followers to be able to pull that gold.
No, we can do it on YouTube. I mean, I guess you don't really have the followers there either, like, because they're supposed to be the average people, so we're gonna get like no people who Mythic raid. But like, if you were to Mythic raid, what would be more important to you, CE or like trinkets? And I mean, CE is what it's all about. You don't need the trinkets if you get CE.
Clearly,
right?
if you got it done, you no longer need the trinket, right?
Done, you don't need it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But that's my point though. Is like, if the people are saying I need the gear, like these people who are upset are saying I need the gear or I'm disadvantaged, right? Or it's not fair.
Yeah.
But the people who are actually doing it don't care about the gear. Like, it's just like, oh, that's nice, I got it, that's great, you know?
Yeah.
I can parse higher. And so, like, if you kill the gear side of it, if you just completely obliterate the gear side of it, and that no one will re-clear after they get Cutting Edge, well, you kill all gold cells for mounts and the like, right? You kill any reason to even make myth track items, because they're not the reason why people are going after it, and they're not the reason why people are able to succeed at the raid, because they didn't get the trinket until they killed the last boss, right? You completely destroy the other half of that equation, even if it is smaller comparatively. And
well, and that hurts Blizzard, because they get, if people are spending millions of gold on buying runs.
Even outside that, it also stops people from staying subbed if they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to stay around for re-clear.
Subbed. Yeah.
You guys are fixated on like these top end people, right? And
well, no, right now I'm fixated on the people who are complaining on Twitter.
The people who are complaining about it not being fair are just being silly, right? If I'm a casual guy, I can run a normal raid and get a great trinket or item in the raid at a hero item level that I was never able to obtain before.
Which is also
That's-
extended an additional
Yeah,
two.
it is. It's extended two tiers, right? So that's the majority of this player base. The people y'all are talking about are the people who
Well,
are
hold on,
complaining
hold
are
on.
dumb, but the people y'all are talking about
55.6% of 430 people. Be careful now.
55% of 430. But like the majority of the player base are casuals. I've been pugging low keys and I've seen the casuals. There's a lot of them, and it's rough. It's rough out there, right? But I don't know, man. It's perfectly fair. There's nothing unfair about it. I have no qualms or no issues with any of this.
The only thing I think is unfair is that they gave us Dinars in the past. They worked a certain way, and now they don't.
Just let it go.
Unfair.
It's fine.
Do you
I
think,
let it
Scrap,
go.
they have an obligation to meet that expectation?
I think they had an
Even as it-
obligation to communicate it more effectively.
Okay, we're gonna get to communication. That's our last point.
That's my main.
All right.
I totally agree with you guys on all the way up to communication, and maybe I will agree with you, but I think that overall, as bad luck protection, this is solid. I think it's fair. Like, I don't think that you should just be able to get handed mythic trinkets. Like, that makes total sense. But the communication was terrible, and they have a history of terrible communication.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Ask you anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. So here's the thing that came out of this. It's not fair. Is there were people that were saying M+ is the main game of WoW. Okay. So here's
I
someone.
agree with that.
You do
I
agree with
agree.
that? So
For
here's
me.
someone that retorted with that by saying, okay, well, here are viewership numbers for things like the Great Push. So peak average 13K, MDI, peak average 68K, and Race the World First, 206K. And someone in the response actually even said, if by this standard you're deciding what is the most popular part of the game, 11 notifications, that's what's happened while we're in here. If this is standard, then actually OnlyFang's heroic or hardcore rating is by far the main game of World of Warcraft, right?
And you should turn retail into hardcore.
So do you agree with M+ is the main game mode and should be the focus more on that player base?
Well, I don't think like numbers that people watch, because like all of us watch Race the World First and none of us Mythic Raid. Like, I don't think that's a good reflection of what people are actually doing in the game.
Yeah, but okay, but we do raid.
Yeah, I mean we do, but like
we don't run 20 keys. Does that mean it's any less equivalent that we do M+?
But I just think saying the Twitch viewer numbers is like reflective of what people are doing is not fair. I think a better thing would say, like, let's look at the numbers of how many like Mythic raids are done a week and how many keys are done a week. Like,
well, and I was
how many
actually that was
episodes are
one thing I
spent.
wanted to pull data wise. But here's my point, Scrap. Even if we look at the Mythic Plus completions and how many have been done, the problem is the same 5 people can be doing 40 of them, right? You can't do that for raid.
That's true, but in that case, I would say that if the majority of the psychopath player is like spending the majority of their hours per week in Mythic Plus, simply because there's not enough hours to spend on the raid, then
Well,
I think
that's not true. People do spend a ton of time in Mythic raid sometimes.
That's true. But I'm just saying, like, if like most people who are like no life in this game, you know, we do what, 6 hours of raid a week ish, 3 to 6 hours depending on if we cleared or not.
We're very casual at that rate though.
Well, then how many hours of Mythic Plus do we do? More than that.
Way more.
Some weeks, you know, some weeks more, some weeks less.
No, so one of the people that was probably in response to the notifications you saw was arguing that it is way more time consuming to Mythic Plus than it is to raid.
I don't think you can say anything is time consuming, right? It's just like how much time or enjoyment are you getting out of it, and like Mythic Plus you can just do over and over and over and not get bored. Some people do, but
well, and here's where my argument got kind of like I was like, hold on a second, that's not a fair way to look at it, because if you're going to look at it like, okay, well, if I'm a Race to World Firster, right? If I'm the top of the top of the top, which again, the 0.1%, I'm going to be clearing the raid fairly quickly. I'm not going to have to invest a ton of time into getting the chip done, right? But on the inverse of that, I ask you, how much time have you had raiding so far? Have you been raiding nonstop since week 1, so like 8 weeks?
So like what, the 2 days of usually they're like 3 hour days, so give or take
not that bad.
the 2 days a week, so 6.
Okay, and
So
it's safe to say you have a couple more weeks ahead of you, right?
Yeah, probably at least another 5 to 8 weeks or so.
I know it's
So-
not uncommon for CE guilds to do like 4 days a week though.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they call
Yeah,
it
we're pretty
overtime
casual.
sometimes because they're going like, no, we can get this boss down today, and we're gonna go one extra day this week, and sometimes they even go like 7. I think Dratnos' guild, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my remembrance of it is that like they decided to push I think all 7 days because they wanted to get the boss done, but they got it done in like week 3, right, or week
Yeah.
4. And so they were done. Now, granted, there's reclear. That's irrelevant because that's them either selling or whatever. But the time commitment's all over the place anyways. Whereas with going to title, you're constantly having to push to get all these things done, and it's a ton of time investment. So like even this whole idea of like it's not fair because I don't want to waste my time. They're not respecting my time. Like, dude, you're doing way more in Mythic Plus than you would in a raid, and even at Ioski's stake, where he's hopefully going to get cutting edge in the next couple weeks, you are still doing more Mythic Plus every week than raiding. Is that fair to say?
I mean, if you're talking about like a 40-minute dungeon, and I do at least 8 to fill the vault, and I
40
probably they're usually like 40, like 30,
No,
40 minute timers. Aren't they?
they're around 30 this season.
And
going 40, you win.
getting everything ready for it.
Pretty
Yeah.
invested.
Yeah, so you're 8, and then maybe you do it through a couple alts if someone's doing a key, but you filled your vault on your main, and you just do a couple alts. So yeah, I'd say it's probably closer than most, but it's mostly more Mythic Plus than raiding usually.
Let me tell you, you know what helps those people who are pushing title? Resilient keys.
Yeah, we're doing resilient keys another week. We were going to talk about that this week
Yeah.
originally.
I know.
So the other side of it too is like we're not even factoring out the raiders have to do Mythic Plus. So like in order to be able to progress their gear faster because they're not able to get gear from the boss because the boss is not dying, they have to do Mythic Plus, and also some of the best in slots are on Mythic Plus.
They literally have to get their crests. Like they don't.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you can't get enough crests from raid. Like I feel like
you might be able to, but it's very close.
If you're a raider, you have to Mythic Plus. If you're a Mythic Pluser, you do not have to raid. Like,
and so the disrespect of time is actually going in the opposite direction.
yeah,
right?
it is. I don't know, and nobody can use the disrespect of time. Like that's
Well,
so stupid.
You get out of it what you want to get out of it, right?
That's their entire job is to fuck with your time, dude. Like that's what they want you to do.
that's true, but there's a reality where I think Mythic Plus people believe Mythic Plus is a big part of the game because it's more available to the majority, right? Because you don't have to you could plug into keys PP all day long and get into keys and do a bunch of
every
stuff.
episode you guys need to explain what PP is. I can't have that
Hug and push.
Hug and push. Hug and push.
In addition, Lithine, you don't even have to time the keys. Like you
No,
just have to
but
finish them.
For raid requires a level of coordination, right? Even if you plug into a raid, you still have the time and coordination that goes into whoever's trying to lead that chaos, because it probably is going to be chaos. So
You know what I was just thinking too? Let's pretend there's a world where they didn't have Dinars at all. I don't think anyone would have been complaining that they couldn't get their Mythic trinket because they weren't doing Mythic raid. So
well, that's my point. Yeah, like that was the disadvantage part.
If they hadn't pitched this as Dinars, and like you showed that blue post earlier where they were like, it's gonna be like Shadowlands and Dragonflight, we might change it, but we want it to be like
oh my god, let it go. Let it go.
I also wonder to agree, and we'll get to that in communication. I wonder to agree. I need to look at the timeline of they put the PTR out, and then they realized, oh shit, we put the renown track in and we didn't think of that. We have to say something, and then they said something, and of course they just flubbed something out there as quickly as they could, not thinking of the consequences of it. But again, we'll get to that in communication. Okay,
you guys remember
let's
I was just a little aside. You guys remember when Paladins just didn't have hero talents and they said it was working as intended? I'm just saying this is the same company that did that.
I will go back to Skarsgård's quote of it's really hard to put this stuff it's really hard to communicate this in a post.
Working as intended though.
Okay, so they're not disadvantaged. We agree, right? We're all unanimous.
We agree. We're all in agreement
It's
on
not
that.
it is fair. We all agree.
We agree.
Yes.
Ask you? Okay. So here we're going to get started in the areas where I could see one way or the other, okay? Point number 3, M+ should have bad luck protection.
Oh, no, because the bad luck protection is that you can run them indefinitely.
Okay.
That's your bad luck protection.
I'm happy
If
to
you're
hear at
talking
least
about-
off the bat you're like, okay, this isn't necessarily a slam dunk idea.
I don't think I've
No.
ever had to run a dungeon more than like 15 times to get the piece I
Hold
wanted.
on. Myth track is different
Well-
from hero track. Scrap. Sorry, I asked you going.
Okay, yeah.
I
No, you're good. I was gonna say the closest thing I think you could get for this, since you already get myth from your vault, is maybe do some kind of vault bad luck protection. But that's the only thing I could see, and you don't necessarily get to deterministically pick what it is. It's just maybe you either get sad tokens that you can put towards a potential piece from a vendor, or you can, if you have a week where you get like a Signet of the Priory and a House of Cards, you can freeze one of them for the next week and see if you want to pick it then or something. But
Okay.
other than that, I don't necessarily think you need to do anything for Mythic Plus specifically.
I like these ideas, but before we get to the ideas, let's just address, should there be let's call it a dinar system. So like every week you do 4 dungeons, you get 1 token, and then after 3 you can trade it in, right? Do we think there
I'll
should be
go with
that
no.
system? No. Okay.
No.
Scrap.
I wouldn't hate. I would like that, but I don't think they need to.
You don't think
'Cause
that it's unfair that the raid has one but we don't? Mythic Plusers?
No, I don't. So I don't think so, because again, it's like what's the problem? It's that I'm being disadvantaged, but like we looked at the stats. You're not. So
I think being able to run indefinitely. So let's take like the myth equation out of it, and let's just say you're just doing heroic, raid, and Mythic Plus. You can run indefinitely for Mythic Plus to get what you need. Raid, you only get like 1 shot at the item per week plus your vault.
Mhm.
So I think that's where you'd want more bad luck protection, because the chances of getting it are less overall.
Especially if once you start re-clearing for gear, you might be selling it. You might be, all sorts of things. So
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I don't think.
all right,
you
Lithium, what's your take?
Here's what I'm gonna say. I do think it'd be nice to have, because when we ran MDI, which we're gonna talk about at some point,
Mm-hmm.
the gear that I had was all the top end gear, right? And what I want to get to, what I have fun doing, is trying to push harder content, right? And I want to get to that as quickly as possible. Being able to get gear, that high end gear, quickly lets me get to what I enjoy doing the most faster, right? And I think having some bad luck protection, that allows me to do that is something I'd like to have for Mythic Plus, because that's where the majority of my gear is coming from, right? So
But do you think it should be the dinar system for Mythic Plus? Like if you do 4 dungeons?
I think it'd have to be a different type of system, but like I asked, you had some good ideas. There's got to be a better way to do it for Mythic Plus, because Mythic Plus is different, right? It's more available. You can run keys all day long. The only way I get myth gear from Mythic Plus, though, is through the Vault, which is a terrible lottery system
Crapshoot.
that it can end up being a sad, which is why that sad token exists. Like,
Okay.
I mean,
it was sad.
it's
So
sad.
So we all agree that maybe the dinar system isn't the right fit for Mythic Plus, but let's talk about maybe what we would implement. So I ask you talked about, and this is actually, I think, something you said before the dinar system even came up, of, oh man, I got like maybe my 2 best in slot trinkets in the vault from the dungeons.
Mhm.
And I want both of them, but I'm going to be fucked. Like I'm never going to see that other one again. So freezing a slot for a week would be nice. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yep.
However,
they
I
do
don't think
that,
that's
and-
necessarily a bad luck protection. It's more of just like a luck protection.
Yeah.
I get to keep
Yeah,
my
pretty
luck.
much.
Luck
Yes,
protection.
kind of similar to how they do with the trading post. So they have it in
Yeah.
other kind of systems they do. So it would just kind of translate, I think.
Guys, I'm sorry. Lo-fi Banshee's ripping this dude apart. So I had some ideas too. Like for me, it was like, okay, one of 2 things. One, it's you only will get vault gear rolled if you do a specific dungeon. So if you're like targeting something, like let's say I want the trinket out of Priory, which tons of people want, or Floodgate. Tons of people want the melee want the Floodgate one, right?
Yeah.
If I did 8 floodgates, my roll would be entirely out of floodgate.
But then I might be like, I don't want to run a Cinder Brew because I don't want to mess up my roll.
I don't disagree. There's a flaw in it, right? I'm just and also keep in mind this would only happen this far into the season. It wouldn't be that way before that. The other idea I had was, what if it was every time you got a vault. So it'd just be, you get 1 token per vault if you didn't choose something from the vault. And it would be a roll on a specific slot. So it'd be like, I want a trinket, and there's 12 trinkets in the loot box, right? Or in the whole thing. And I buy the standard generic trinket icon. I click on it and I get a roll of a trinket. What about that idea?
I mean, I like the idea of being able to
In Myth
re-roll a slot piece, just like could be fun.
Yeah,
I don't
but that's
know about
also still
saying
like
like
there's
I
like
want a
100
trinket, give me a
something.
trinket.
Yeah, but there's 100 something things. So re-rolling it it's like a 1 in 100 that you're gonna get your.
Better than nothing.
I don't know. That would be like
Better.
kind of
You
maybe
have fun
dangling the carrot.
animation with like a slot handle.
I
and
know.
just
Or
something like that.
they used to have the coin that you could roll again.
I love the coin where you roll again, and
So
sometimes you would
maybe
lose again. But like
So maybe you put on a vendor, you put like the 3 trinkets you want, and then like you get a 1 in 3 chance or whatever to roll on those.
I don't. Yeah.
Which of these ideas do you think would be the best fit?
I like Aya's idea of luck protection.
The freezing?
The freezing.
I've never had 2 good items in the vault.
I've been lucky if I had 1 good item.
No, because sometimes I'll have. Well, I'm thinking early in the season where it's like, oh, heroic, like my 4 set and my 4 set. You know what I mean?
No, I know, but that's not even myth track. Like.
So here's the thing.
No,
if you
I like the idea, but I don't think it's
gonna help. If you take the luck out of the vault, it makes the vault less exciting.
I know, but that's the same thing that Dinars are doing for a raid, and everyone's losing their goddamn mind about how
I honestly don't understand why it's needed, because like the way they explained it, where they're like, oh, in Shadowlands and Dragonflight, they were like half seasons where you might only run this raid once a week, and so you weren't getting access to it. So we had extra ability to get those things. Total sense. This season, I don't even know why they're doing this, except
because everyone loved it so much. They wanted to give the players what they wanted, and of course, the players don't know what they really need.
Well, yeah, but they're like, we want to give it to you, but like only a little bit, and it's like
it's not only a little bit. It's 95% the way there.
I don't think this is needed.
If you look at the theme of it all, it's the turbo boost. So maybe they're thinking like midway through the season, we'll give you extra eye level, we'll give you some more power, let you get a couple raid items you want.
It's to keep people subbed.
I think that's the idea behind it. And maybe if you're at a certain level, help you push a little higher. Just, I think it's just a mid.
It's to give you that extra oomph to get across the finish line.
Initially, they were thinking maybe doing it in the raid renown, figuring this would come out around the same time. And then they're like, no, we don't want to do that. And then they kind of planned this instead. And here we are.
They want people to play alts. They want people to play more characters.
They want people to play. It's as simple as that.
And that leads to more playing, more time sink, and more subscription.
But we can't deny that this is what players have been asking for ever since season 4 of Shadowlands. And so they were like, okay, well, we'll meet you arguably 95% of the way there. Right? And so going back to scrap our Mythic Plus version of that, Pandora's box is open, right? We've officially embarked on a bad luck protection system for raid. Now, it can obviously be taken away, but it's here, and let's just assume it's going to be here every season going forward. So if you have a Mythic Plus version of it, because again, Mythic Plus should have one, it's not fair that they don't have one. What is the solution to maybe make it so that you still are enticed to do the content and grow your character, but that trinket that you really wanted and it's week 12 you still haven't gotten on Myth Track, because again, tons of people go their entire vaults without the trinket they want as Myth.
I almost never finish a season with Myth Track trinkets.
Sure.
In fact, a lot of seasons I finished it with like champion trinkets sometimes. Like,
but
it happens.
Scrap. No, it doesn't, because you can endlessly farm it. You should have hero, but that's again.
I don't like farming.
Anyways, scrap. Don't worry about that side of it, because obviously what has happened doesn't necessarily mean it has to continue to happen.
I don't think you need it, because again, you show the numbers that like we're talking about a 2% like
it's not about
different.
need it. It's not about need it. It's that I want it. I want that really cool trinket that has a really fun interaction. I want the really cool trinket that's going to make me, part of the argument was I
you
said
can
this to,
get it on heroic.
I know, but part of the argument is like, okay, forget the push, forget the CE, forget any of that. I just like doing more damage. And to me, if I know that there's 1% out there that I don't have, I'm going to be unhappy. And I was okay with it before because I knew I had to do raid if I wanted this and I had to do Mythic Plus if I wanted that. But I also knew everyone was like at the same quote unquote disadvantage. Now that there is an advantage to raiding, I want that same advantage to Mythic Plus. It's not unfair to say like, I don't need it to get, I'm not getting title, I'm not getting cutting edge. I just want to like pump a little harder. I like seeing myself go up on the DPS meter. You know, you could still argue everyone's going up at the same time if that's the case, but that doesn't, like, in my mind, that's not what I'm looking at. It's more of like, I was doing 5 mil DPS, now I want to do 5.1 mil DPS, and that's what, you know, energizes me. So like,
You know,
I can't follow you down that rabbit hole. I don't think the Mythic Plus needs it. So
yeah,
that's just me.
well, I do
so
think
scraps
Mythic Plus
just
needs
throw
it,
Dinars
but-
away altogether.
But
Yeah, honestly.
also
Okay,
for
hot take.
a sad story,
Oh,
Let's hear it.
no.
If it's not at your pants in your vault.
one of my best in slot trinkets for Blood DK comes from the Delves.
Oh yeah,
And
my-
getting a hero
Yeah.
track trinket from the Delves is
Yeah.
freaking impossible.
Yep.
That makes me angry.
Lithian, I just started this journey this week because I was looking at Blood Mallet and I was like, you know what? My third best trinket is a Delve trinket. I was like, well, I'm not going to get this or I don't want that, whatever it is. And so I started doing it and I realized, oh my God, like that's fucking miserable.
Yeah, it sucks, dude. I hate it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Sad
So
story.
do we need a Dinar system for Delves?
Yeah.
We need a Dinar system for everything.
We need a narcissism
just
for
thinking-
everything.
I was just about to say, like, how do we help people who primarily pet battle get M+ in raid gear? Like,
Yeah, that was the
Well,
Dinars.
no, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Aski. Now they get it. The Dinar system gives them the raid gear. It's
That's
just that
true.
if their best in slot is in Mythic Plus, they're dumb shit out of luck. Okay. So Scrap wants to scrap the entire Dinar system and says you guys are idiots and shouldn't get anything.
She doesn't like to have fun.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite outcome of this bad luck protection for Mythic Plus? What would you do?
I want to be able to push keys and do harder content and enjoy
Okay.
being able to do that. But to do that, you have to have, for tanking, it's more about survivability, right? And sometimes it's about making sure you're putting out enough damage to hold aggro, or you're doing certain things that require certain items. And so,
Well, hold on.
I think.
Can we play
I
out this
disagree with
scenario
the
for a second?
premise.
No. Well, you do two Scrap.
Well, I do because I know that most of the time where we have an issue with tanking, it's because of stuff being tanked in the wrong places.
Well, hold on.
Or
Okay,
like,
don't come at
No.
no. That's not what. No.
Forgetting.
That was my premise.
Lith.
No, forget about all that. I'm talking
I agree.
about
I'm
just
forgetting
straight
about all that.
gear.
Yeah, no, but Lith, here's the thing. Isn't part of the journey from 12 to 19s or whatever, or, you know, we did the MDI, right? We were definitely doing our highest time keys we've ever done. And it isn't part of that is like, okay, well, if you were given all that gear by week 8, let's just say, does that truncate your season from week 8 to, let's say, week 10, where you start to realize, well, okay, now I'm hitting a wall where it's no longer the gear that I'm missing. It's now me, right? And wouldn't that shorten your season as opposed to prolong it?
Absolutely for me.
I don't know, right? Because
There are people out there that I think like you do that would say like, no, I'd be playing like crazy and trying to get better and better. I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but I'm just saying like majority of people.
Majority of the people, you're right. Yes, for me and maybe people like me, it's about trying to figure out how to route a dungeon better, or how to tank and position mobs better and push higher keys and harder content. But I know like Scrap is checking out after she gets Resilient 13, right? She doesn't care.
She
She's
says
retired.
that. She says
Well,
that.
well, then they're gonna give me the player power, and then I'll check out at Resilient 14.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then when she hears we're doing 16, she'll say, all right, I'm back, baby.
And I'll be,
She's like,
I'll be
I'm back. Carry
then
me.
Then I'll be
Carry
done
me.
at Resilient 16.
Carry my pack leader.
Oh god, carry the pack leader. You need my pyro damage. You need it.
But that's, I mean, I have fun doing keys with y'all, and a lot of that is fun trying to push harder content and do because I could do 10s. I could do 10s in my sleep.
We should do some
And-
10s with like no healer, or like 10s with no tank or something, just
That's
to keep
no,
it spacey.
that's not what.
that's-
Don't focus on that right now.
I'm getting
that's-
distracted.
But that's the problem is like I've
One of the-
gone beyond 10s, but I can't like it. You can't push too much higher until you get
Well,
better
okay,
gear
but
in
Lith,
some
one of the
cases.
solutions recommended was, okay, I just want a tournament realm. I want the realm where, let's say after 8 weeks, even though I don't think that makes sense anyways, but let's say after 8 weeks, Blizzard opens the tournament realm for everyone. And this is where the title push happens. This is where, like everyone's on the even playing field, all that nonsense. Their time is respected because everyone literally starts at the starting line and the finish line is up to them. How far do they go, right?
Frank, you know what I do to that? I unsub until that happens.
Yeah,
Like-
so the inverse happens, right?
Yeah, like why would the fuck would I push? They're gonna just give me that.
Okay, so there is something to building your character, right?
Yeah.
And getting the gear over time that I do appreciate, right? But at a certain point in the season, you're hitting that wall and you're not getting what you need from the vault, and you're just like my DK is I got everything I need except for like maybe three items that I can use out of the vault that I may never see the entire season.
I'm
No matter-
confused because
like, I
we're
fill my
only
vault.
8 weeks in, right? And you're
He's
telling me
pulled a piece every week.
no,
let
because
me
he complained for
rephrase.
the first 3 weeks that he got the sad thing.
No, I didn't.
He never got a sad. It was me.
Yeah, I never got a
pulled,
sad.
Like 3 sads down the vault.
I thought all like you, Haywire, and Lithian. I thought all 3 of you were just like, because I was like,
No,
what
no,
the
no.
fuck are
I
y'all
don't
doing?
bitch
It
about
was
the
week
vault
2,
much.
3, and 4, and all of you guys are pulling sads.
No, 'cause
I've
all
never
of
pulled a
them-
sad.
All of them are hooked on their best in slot. If it's not best in slot, throw it
No.
out.
No, no,
Like,
no,
Yeah,
not
100%.
because
No, myth is
because
myth.
They don't
Yeah,
care.
Myth-
Lithian will
Myth-
complain about pants. He got 4 pants when he needs myth pants, and he's bitching about it.
no, I'm not bitching about it. I just took the
You
myth
did
pants
bitch
and I was
about
fine
it.
with it.
You know,
I
you
was
bitched
mad.
about it.
I
Yeah.
was mad
Lithian,
about the bug.
You
I was mad
grumble,
about the
you
bug.
grumble.
I did because it's annoying and
based
whatever.
on his-
But
Based on his grumbling, would you think that before this week, Lithian needed myth pants?
No, based on his grumbling, I thought he was getting sad tokens, but it sounds like no, he
No,
wasn't.
no,
He was just
no,
saying,
no.
I'm gonna have
No.
to take one, and he didn't.
Yeah, no, he
No,
complains
I-
every week.
I haven't. My vaults have not been great week over week. But
And,
Lots of
and, yet,
double
and yet
greatest
he's
to a
got
single
8 out of
sad.
8 mythics. Like he only
Yeah.
needs 3 more.
no, I still need a couple of tier pieces for mythic. But
Okay.
Not pants.
yeah,
Let's move on,
not
let's move on.
pants, not pants.
on.
I got plenty of pants.
This is the real problem with the WoW community is that they're a bunch of fucking complainers. That's
That's true.
the issue.
That's true.
That's the main issue.
We always have to have something to complain about. Otherwise,
Yeah.
there'd be no podcast.
Exactly.
So what's this? You're saying the tournament realm. That's your ideal scenario.
No, I don't want it. I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that.
I ask you, what
actually.
is your ideal scenario out of what we've recommended?
For which part
Mythic,
exactly
Mythic
again?
Plus should have a bad luck protection system.
Oh, I think the vault, the ideas for the vaults and just making those either a re-roll or a freeze. I don't necessarily think you need to do anything outside of that if you're gonna add anything like that. But I don't think you need it regardless. So
Okay. Well, so again, 2 of you are saying it's not needed at all. And
Yeah, I wouldn't
Lithian's
discuss-
saying I just need a shop to buy whatever I want and go on my way.
No,
Yeah,
I
I will
what
say-
actually would be nice is if my vault would not give me an item that I already have.
What about this?
That would
Oh
be
yeah, that'd
cool.
be
What if
good.
there was a coin that you could proc in your vault that was you just got lucky and the coin appeared, and then you could buy the specific item you wanted? What about that?
That'd be all right.
Well, I'd
Yeah,
still
that's
be
fine.
annoyed I wasn't getting any fucking coins.
Yeah.
And then Sean, you would pull 3 coins in a row, like
I'll say this:
That'd make me angry.
there's always gonna be BIS, but I think the real solution is I wish they would just design a bunch of trinkets that are actually fun to use no matter what.
Yes,
because I
that's
feel
okay.
like-
That's a fair
Yeah.
argument. Yeah.
that trinkets weren't so
I
different.
feel like there's so many
Yeah.
you just get from dungeons, and you're just like, this is like, why would I ever use this? And I know it's tough for them to envision a scenario where everything is going to be used, but I feel like there's just some things that they could look at and be like, okay, if someone got this, they would at least be cool using it instead of just being like,
Well, I think
know,
that's what they do
yeah.
sometimes, though, right?
The-
I mean,
the-
like that
the problem
motorcycle
with
that
that-
crashes into things.
Right. The problem with that argument though is, everybody has their talent builds they're going to use because that's what all the people are doing. Everyone's going to have flavor of the month classes because that's what everyone else is doing. And it's like there isn't a lot of variety in the talents in most cases. You're gonna run one build. You're gonna run hero spec. I like Blood DK. You can run both hero specs and do well, right? And I like that. I enjoy that. And there's some variety in the talents, but not a lot. When I played my Windwalker monk, everybody's like, there's one set of talents and one hero set that's going to give you the most DPS. That's
the
it.
case for the most thing.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
point though. Is
So-
like, I wish there was more variety. I wish there wasn't. I wish you just weren't locked in to
But
do
the
the best
problem with the
damage.
trinkets, though, is that like they have a trinket that's like a mastery stick, and they have a trinket that's like a crit stick. It's like, well, crit is terrible for me, but mastery's good, and mastery's bad for you, and crit's good for me. And then I still have a chance to get the one that's bad for me in the vault. Like,
Yeah, but that's
So
the,
that's the
that's,
problem with
that's the role.
trinkets.
That's the slot machine. You
yeah, I
asked
know,
for,
but that's
Sky.
I know. I like the slot machine, but that's what I'm saying. That's why trinkets, like, it feels bad to get like a bunch of bad trinkets, but in reality, a lot of those trinkets that are bad for me are fine for someone else.
But
Or
also,
that's how it should work.
WoW is a game designed on the idea that, hey, you might not always get good gear, but when you get good gear, that feels great. And the fact that obviously the game's had to evolve because it's changed over the years. The fact that we even have these systems now is already a step above what we had before. And I think we should just appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.
I stand by. I think they fucked up with the Dinar system.
Oh
in the
my
first place.
gosh.
Hold on. Okay.
Like,
So
to open this up.
let's get on to another point. Point
Yeah,
number
we
4.
have to.
Point number 4.
Yeah.
The problem wasn't what is happening with the system. The problem is why bring this? Why not tell us about this when the season starts?
Yeah.
So we all could know
Yeah.
what was going to happen. So this is part of the communication thing, right? So
Yep.
why not just wait till season 2, right? And say, or season 3, sorry, and say, hey, we were going to do this. I'm sorry it didn't happen, and they would have communicated that wasn't going to happen long ago. But going into season 3, here's what we're thinking. Here's what we want to do, right? And of course, obviously, they could iterate it based on feedback right away. But like the problem is like, okay, well, I wasn't raiding at all, and now I feel like I have to raid. Do you think that that's enough of a warranted excuse or argument that they should have scrapped this now and go ahead and wait for season 3?
What do you mean that they take this out now because everybody is upset?
Like they should say, hey,
No,
based on your
they can't do
feedback.
that.
Okay. Based on your
Based on
feedback,
your feedback,
it sounds
you're not getting anything.
No. Based on your feedback, you guys think we need to cook on this more, right?
Y'all are
Yeah.
a bunch of bitches.
So we are
you
going to
get
take
nothing.
this as a framework and we're going to move it into season 3. And or okay,
It's
forget.
the worst thing they can do.
Well, okay, let's
You
look at it
guys-
differently then. Let's look at it
You
differently.
guys complain too much.
Let's say they announced this on January 15th. Would
That'd be
people be losing their
fine.
mind? Would be people losing their mind?
I don't think so. Here's how they should.
Well, Scrap, you don't think people should be losing their minds, so you're not
No,
gonna...
no.
Before
Wait, no. I do think so. I do think they should be, because this is an over-promising issue, and they didn't directly over-promise it, but they knew what they were doing. They knew we weren't going to like this when they didn't communicate it to us, and they should have said from the beginning, "Hey, we want to implement a bad luck protection." They should have front and center said, hey, you guys, we're giving you something great this season. It's gonna be a bad luck protection measure. It's gonna be awesome, and it's similar to Dinars, but not the same. And then pitched it like that.
Yeah,
Because saying it's like Dinars, we want it to be like Dinars, and then saying no, it's just bad luck protection. Like,
did
is
they know
bad.
that that's what they were gonna do January 15th?
That okay?
They
I don't
should
think
have
so.
known.
Okay, let's
It
go on
doesn't
and move.
seem
like
Into
it.
let's go on and move to the communication conversation then. Okay.
Yes,
'Cause
we
are
need
running
to
out
talk
of time.
about the communication, because that is
So,
the issue.
Here's the
It's the
thing.
issue here.
It is very
I
clear.
think everywhere.
It is very clear, right, that they said one thing, they backtracked it, and then in fairness, Skarzard told us they were backtracking to a degree, maybe not as explicitly saying, by the way, this is not what we're doing. But the whole reason I want to say that is because, as Lithian just said, or sorry, whoever said it, they may not have known what they were doing to be able to communicate it. Here's my problem with the communication argument. It's not wrong. It's not wrong, okay? But they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And what I mean by that is, if I tell you everything that's happening in our meetings every week, right, or every day, right, the feedback is going to get so like critical mass that we're going to have to start reacting in real time to every single thing, right? So for example, if everyone's on the forum saying, is this Dinars? Where are Dinars? Where are Dinars, right? And they keep responding, they're coming. Or they even get even more detailed and more over communicative and saying, hey, we're actually thinking about changing it, right? they have to continuously give us everything that they may not even be ready to answer themselves. And it gives us even over communication to the point where we are more confused and more disillusioned to what's happening.
I think it's a little bit, you said like, are you worried was like one of the things we talked about before. I
Mhm.
think it's a little bit worrying that something they pitched as like a front and center feature of this season is something they didn't flesh out entirely.
It wasn't front.
You
center.
mean
What?
fleshed out
Well,
on their end?
Yeah, on their end, like
You
to
mean the
communicate.
Dinars?
Yeah, the
Well,
Dinars.
here's-
The
okay,
Dinars
okay,
was a big
okay.
thing with this season. They
Hold
said,
on a second.
No, you hold on a second, because that
You hold on
was
a
something
second.
that was something that they pitched as part of this
No, but
raid
scrap.
reputation.
No,
Scrap.
I
Be
think
fair.
they put it in a renowned track and somebody saw it and they said, well,
they had to answer
now,
for it.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay,
now
okay.
we have to
Yeah,
answer to it,
well-
right? It wasn't front and center
And-
as part of,
And
Well, they
it
should
was
have
on the
truthfully-
PTR. The PTR
Yeah.
is a test environment.
yeah.
They should have answered truthfully. Is that we're still cooking on this?
But here's
They did say that.
the thing, like my
Yeah,
8 to 5 job. I have to develop strategy for an organization. If I know everything day one, you know, it's going to evolve over time. And
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a reality where everything I know that day, as I progressively learn and understand what the motives of the organization are, the strategy has to change and adjust, right? And I
And you
think
can't keep telling everyone what the strategy is as it evolves. It's impossible.
right.
Yeah.
I think this Patrick fellow probably said, you know,
Scar's idea.
I can't say his last name.
Scarborough.
Scarborough?
yeah.
Yeah.
Skarsgård.
Everybody says Skarsgård. Anyway,
Scar's right here.
I think what he came to was a realization that, you know, if we did the system the way we did it before, it's going to create the type of game that they didn't want to have as far as this season
Yeah.
goes. So they made a change.
Yeah, the quote was, "It's the most powerful thing we can do," and it was implied to say, "And we're not sure if we should take that step."
Right.
Right?
So
And so, Scrap, here's the thing. Let's play out this scenario, okay?
Let's hear it.
Let's assume that they put it in the renown track and intended for everyone to see it. I'm
Yeah.
skeptical of that, but I'm not convinced enough that it wasn't the case, right? So they
Yep.
put it in going, oh, people are going to be really excited about this, okay?
Yeah. People
Then
are
in the
loving
next,
this.
and then in the next week's reading, or no, forget it. Then they see the forum posts and they see everyone going, what the fuck? This means that like all that hard work I did on Mythic raiding is for nothing, right?
Yeah, but
and
were
they-
there forum posts like that? Because I remember there being what people were scared about is like, oh my god, it's gonna take us so long to get to that track.
That was the overwhelming.
That was like the main overwhelming.
Yes,
like,
yes, and they reacted to that.
people.
They said, "Hey, we're not going to do it that late. We agree that that's too late." Skarsgård
Yeah.
said it in that interview, right? But
Mhm.
they also saw feedback, and forget it. Let's say it wasn't on them forums, but they internally go, "Well, hold on a second. Is this actually a good idea?" Right? They
Yeah.
can't go on the the forums and say, "Guys, we think this is a bad idea. Hold on, we're going to cook on this," right? Because then they open up another part of the discussion of, well, first they're going to get criticized. Second, then everyone's going to say, well, what are you doing? And they want answers right away, and they can't give those answers
Mhm.
right away. So what they did is they, Skarsgård said like, hey, I'm going to PR my way through this and say like, it's the most powerful thing we could do. And I want to implement it. And I want to make sure I'm able to pull back and not overpromise and, blah, blah, blah. So they start cooking on it. And maybe they continually, as Lithium alluded to, like develop and develop and develop. And they go, okay, what about this? And then a week later they go, no, we can't do that. Here's why. Okay, well, what about this?
Uh-huh.
No, we can't do that. Here's why. Right? Like the Leos of the world out there are going, no, you're an idiot. This is why you'll break the game. Right?
This is something that was like pitched as part of this patch. Like, why are they still crafting it during the patch?
That's how development
Like,
works.
But if they're planned all the way out to like fucking midnight, but
No, you're talking about story and systems.
During the
Like,
patch.
okay, I guess
They
you're right.
developed it on the PTR and then announced it when they intended to announce it. It's just they didn't have all the information out yet. That's all.
well, not only that, but look at the upgrade track. They had it in season 2 of Dragonflight, and they've changed it every single season since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not like that's different saying that like, okay, so they said they were doing this renowned track like at the beginning of the season, and then they've changed it multiple times during the season, as opposed to like between seasons.
No, that's literally what the upgrade track does. They change it between seasons.
No, but I'm saying that the renown track has changed multiple times, like
No, it hasn't.
like from what they originally was on the PTR.
They pulled
Which you
it
could
out.
say is, yeah.
They pulled that out, but that's the only thing. I mean, maybe they swap some things around, but my point is this though, right? So they keep going like, well, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Right? And they do their internal testing, they do their internal development, and they go, oh, no, this just doesn't still feel right. But they can't communicate that, okay? And they can't communicate, we don't know what we're doing yet, right? So I'm not saying that you're wrong to say they should have communicated better, because for starters, they shouldn't have fucking said this stupid fucking thing today, right?
Go back to what they did communicate.
Right?
Like,
This
that's
is a
not easy to walk
huge
back.
fucking problem, right?
Yeah.
Huge problem. There's no doubt about I'm not defending it, right? And I want to be clear, I'm not even defending the fact that they weren't talking, right? But I cannot stress this is the problem with the community and how they just have no empathy to say like, well, they can't tell us because hell, they don't even know themselves yet. And even if they did, right, they have all sorts of financial reasons. They have all sorts of, development problem reasons. And they may not even want to cause chaos and, resentment on Twitter or whatever, because they know that's going to be a distraction to their development team. And they say, you know what, we're going to make a decision. Now, they made a decision, and they even reacted to that decision immediately based on what the feedback was and said, you know what, let's go meet in the boardroom. Hey, let's give them one extra one. That seems like it's fair. And yeah, they're right. Waiting 3 weeks after it launches is stupid too. Let's do that, right? And they go, that's something we can move in the direction of not opening Pandora's box to completely break the game, right?
Yeah.
Because for all we know, one of the things could have been what Lithian said was, well, how about we just give them tournament realm access 8 weeks in, or, just unlock all the vendors 8 weeks in. And they go, okay, let's go work on that. And then a week later, they come back going, oh yeah, we just thought about this. Everyone will not sub until that point, won't they? Oh yeah, good point. Right?
I just feel like these things that were like us not as development people like are able to see that things would be a good idea or a bad idea. Like they should have been able to see that people are gonna be outraged about this. Like
well, hold
no
on,
fucking way they
sure,
didn't
but
think
is
that
there a
people would get
scenario
upset
where they
about
don't
this.
have outrage, period?
I think it's one of those things where I think in the future they should just look at this as a lesson and try to just not overpromise with something like Dinars. And I don't think the community should have reacted as negatively as they did. I think they should. I agree. I think there should have been more developer empathy, but I also don't blame people for being upset. And hopefully, just when in the future, they just.
I do remember IO blowing up Discord that first day, being a little bit upset.
Well, and I'm going to be honest. That's what I want to talk about, IOC, right? Because I don't think in any way you've been nasty or whatnot, but you've been critical.
Nasty, but he was. Yeah. And he was invested more than with other changes, I would say.
I was in general surprised because you even said it yourself, like, this isn't really going to impact me. I'm going to get everything I want, Mythic back and all, right? However, the thing is like, that's not the problem. If you were to write what you've written, like, I while I disagree with it, I might, like, I can say, hey, but like he's putting some thought into it, and he's like, you're trying to show empathy. I'd argue we're trying to show empathy, even when I don't feel like you were necessarily connecting it, right? Because you weren't jumping to conclusions of like, these people are idiots. How, I'm so that you weren't complaining. It was more of just like, it's one thing to say, oh man, that sucks, versus how stupid are they? Or this is the stupidest system ever, blah, blah. I'm disadvantaged. How unfair, right? And that's just like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. There's no way out of this scenario. Did they mishandle it? Absolutely. It was an abysmal fuck up. But
I think that at some point they should have realized like, oh, we can't give that everything that we were expecting to give them. They said they intended to give us.
Yeah.
And at that point, they needed to already start doing damage control before they released it. I think they should have been tempering expectations massively.
So this is the question I have for the three of you. This is the question I have for you. Knowing what we know now, what should they have done?
I'll tell you what they should have done. Let's say 3 weeks ago.
I'll
tell you. Let me tell you. So let's say that. Well, first of all, they should have not done this. But let's say they already did this.
Yeah. Assume that they've already done this. This is the first thing.
I'm assuming 3 weeks ago. Is that a fair timeline to say that they realized they weren't going to do that?
No. They realized, I think they were going to do this when Skarzar did the interview on February 18th.
Okay, so February 18th.
This is when and maybe a week before, but they haven't announced it, right? Like in this area.
A month ago, they should have realized, like, oh gosh, we're not going to give them what we said we were.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what everybody's expecting, what everybody's been thinking about and stuff like that. And also this patch we're working on, oh my god, it's not working at all. Like, that should be in the head also.
DEFCON 1.
Right. Exactly. They need to come out and say, hey, we're reworking the Dinar system. This is like a long time ago. And we're not going to be able to do this. Start tempering expectations. We want to pitch it as bad luck protection. Bad luck protection. This is what this is. Like, and how are we going to do a bad luck protection? Like this. And right front and center say, Shadowlands Dinars were different because of this, and this, the Dragonflight Dinars were different because of this. They should have put all this information front and center.
Well, hold on. Okay. So I agree with the whole, if they had said, hey guys, update, right?
Yeah.
We're going to rethink Dinars because Shadowlands and Dragonflight Season 4s were different. Here's why.
They should have led with that, as opposed to leading with, we're turbo boosting you guys. Yeah, like, here we're giving you this great thing. It's just, it's the silent thing is that, like, we're not giving you what you wanted.
Okay.
Like,
so, but like they may not have known a month ago what they were still planning on doing.
They should know that. They know their fucking community. They should know that. You said.
What do you mean they should know that? That's not how development works.
Sorry. I thought you said they didn't know that the people would be upset.
No. Of course they knew. No. I'm saying they didn't know what they were going to do.
Well, no, Frank, you said February 18th. They already know they're not going to do that.
Sure. Let's
maybe 3 weeks ago.
No. Let's clear up the confusion. There's one thing to say we know what we're not doing versus we know what we are doing, right? You said
when do
earlier.
You think they knew what they are doing this week?
I mean,
when they
honestly,
announced this?
honestly, it might have been like 2 days before they put this blue post up.
Okay, then they should have led with the "we're doing it differently. We're so sorry. Please forgive us."
Wow.
The tone.
Wow. Let me apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, start with the apology and then leave it.
Lithian IO. What else would you add to that?
So in an ideal world, like if let's say they knew like 2 weeks ago, maybe they could have put out something then where there's kind of like, hey, just so you know, we're not announcing it yet, and expect an R soon, but we're gonna not do them the way we have in the past.
Also,
just
stop
to set an
calling them
expectation. Yeah, exactly. Puzzling
Yeah.
cartel chips. But let's just say, obviously, we don't live in that world, and let's say they were doing it the same exact way. Just when they released the announcement, I think a lot more background as to what went into it would have probably de-escalated everything right away if they just came out and said, hey guys, we know these don't work like you thought they were going to, here's why. And maybe they could have just given a more rounded explanation as to what their thought process was. As far as how they did it, they just kind of unveiled it as part of the announcement, like, oh hey, by the way. And it's funny too, because when you read it, it's like they led with everything that was good. They're like, hey, more eye level, hey, warbound, whatever, hey, all the stuff you get. And then they're like, oh, by the way, those Dinar things, yeah. So it just I think everything they did was fine up until I think they could have done a lot more explaining, at least initially when they first announced it.
Well, the reason they framed it
the damage control.
Just to clarify though, they framed it that way because they're saying these two things will be available immediately, and then this is coming with it.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah,
I don't think that they framed it like, let's tell them the good stuff first so they don't see the bad stuff. Like, that's not fair.
They should have done it the other way around, done the bad stuff and then the good stuff. Then we would have been happy.
But
do
in their
bad
mind,
stuff and then
hold
apologize.
on. Scrap. Hold on.
That might have been a dramatization on my end, but
no, I know. But
regardless.
Also, let me ask you this: do you think that they put this together and go, oh man, everyone's gonna hate this. We should get ready.
I think they should have.
No,
I
Scrap.
think they should have known that.
Hold on, Scrap. All four of us on points 1, 2, and 3 of I'm not disadvantaged. It's not that it is fair, and M+ shouldn't have a bad luck protection. I don't think it's unfair to say. I'm sure there was someone who's going like, guys, I don't know if the community's gonna react well to this, but I'm sure that they probably came together and said like, this might be a good happy medium, right? I don't think they were planning on the backlash. If they were, they would have already immediately implemented things like, oh God, we got to give them what they want, kind of,
I mean, a point we did kind of gloss over, but I think is relevant, is that this announcement came on the heels of a very disappointing patch launch. So people were already a bit grumbly.
Yeah.
And then they put something else that just made us think, are you serious? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair.
I think that's part of the backlash.
Especially too, I'll let Lithian get to his point in a sec.
Yeah.
They were so hush-hush on it after a while. I think just it kind of came out and people were like, come on, Dinars. And they're just like, oh, we'll give you something soon. And then we finally get it, and it's
Not
this.
what we
Yeah, exactly.
I think that Blizzard needs to invest in a change management practice that understands the player base and a communication practice that goes along with that change management practice that that could help coordinate some of these communications, because at the end of the day, like, if you have those things, then there is awareness of what the player base cares about and how they feel before you curate a half-baked communication. And then constantly having to walk back changes and things like that shows a lack of maturity in that space. And really, if they invested in some of that, I think it would help a lot with the frustration that has come out of the last couple of weeks.
Do you think that
So,
they're walking
my
things
2
back a
cents.
lot?
Yeah.
I have seen it on. I've seen it enough to feel like this is just their MO now. They're gonna put something out. If people don't like it, they may walk it back, right? And so that what that
Well, hold on. But
creates
this
is
isn't walking back. This is adding, right? Like, they didn't walk it back. They just said, all
well,
right, let's put some ice.
it
Let's put
is
some whipped cream on top.
it is, but I think what you get out of that though is a player base that knows if they yell loud
Yeah, I
enough
agree
and
with
they
that, yeah.
complain hard enough,
Mhm.
they're gonna get what they want.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's why all these World of Warcraft players become big complainers, like us.
Yeah.
So
We might get what we want.
yeah, and that's tough. Like, I don't know. So
All right.
I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
So
I do
it-
agree with that. If they feel like they missed the mark, then change it. But I don't think they should change it every single time people complain, because yeah, people are just going to complain for the things that they want for free. And yeah,
look, if I were trying to be empathetic towards the devs, I'm willing to bet in their minds and if I were in their shoes, they're probably saying we don't give in as much as you might think we do. And class balance is, I think, is a good example of
I
that.
mean, yeah, look at Og. They're
Oh my gosh.
they're
Like,
stood
yeah,
on that
Don't
ground.
bring up
for a
Og.
while, right?
Still.
No, they nerfed it now, but
No, but no, what I'm saying is that they're stood on the ground of like, we don't want people playing this.
no, actually it's the inverse, Scrap. They were like, we want Og to work, and for what, 4 seasons or whatever, it was just like completely busted, and everyone was telling him kill Og, and they were stubborn. They said, no, we want to make this work, and then they said, fine, now we have to do it, right? Because
I'm thinking more of, since they killed it, the fact that they've buffed it 2 more times, and each time they do a blue post being like, we're a little unhappy with this, but now it's gonna be good, and just like completely nothing like buff. I think they're like standing their ground on that, like, yeah, it's dead.
I think it's the opposite. They're giving it 15% buff, Scrap. It's not like
forget about.
Have you seen an Og?
But
well, no, but that's
the
community's
other
fault.
thing,
Like,
the other thing I'd add.
have you seen any survival
is-
hunters, Scrap?
No.
Oh my god.
No.
Have you seen some arcane mages?
Well, now you do.
Oh,
yeah. They're fucking. By the way, they're terrible.
Everywhere.
Their orbs are going all over the
Dude,
fucking
yeah,
place.
no.
I saw that one. Half
But-
the damage to the tank. It's so fucking frustrating.
Generally
Anyway.
one of the worst classes to become flavor of the month is Arcane Mage. Like, fucking hit the deck, cover your head. Like, if you let an Arcane Mage in your key, you are a fucking idiot.
I mean,
All right.
the last thing I'll say about this is, if this truly is coming from the development team and there's developers communicating, I don't know how many developers you know, but they're really bad communicators.
Yeah.
They're not good.
Well,
So-
and listen, I think you hit the nail on the head really early in the this is probably a lot of inexperience, a lot of green developers who are coming because they love WoW and they got their job, maybe first, maybe second job with WoW. But the true, juggernaut of developers we've seen slowly bleed out from the team to go to a bigger and better pasture, right? So this might just be inexperience and arguably incompetence. But I also feel like there's we've even done it in this episode where like Scrap will say that they're doing this on purpose to either be stubborn or to just like purposely push buttons.
Maybe.
And I genuinely don't think that's the case. Excuse me, because that's like just shooting themselves in the foot. And again, if they are doing it, it's because of their inexperience and incompetence to know that like that's a terrible fucking idea.
Well, you have to be fair and say that like my understanding of it is like probably what the majority of players.
But Scrap, you don't have an
Also
understanding of it.
understand it.
You're just fucking talking out of
That's
your
what
ass.
I'm saying, is that the majority of players who are outraged
Yes.
also don't have an
Yes.
understanding of it. So my take is
Oh my
important because I'm
gosh.
giving you the
I'm not-
people's take.
I'm not
People's-
saying
Yeah.
that there isn't a correlation between what you are saying and what other people are thinking. I'm just saying every time we do that, we are becoming, I'm not going to say equally, but very close to equally as much of the part of the problem.
I want to know how many people think Scrap is giving the people's take.
Oh God.
This is going to be a very contentious episode. I'm actually surprised that we mostly agreed on everything, but that's not what the world out there is giving me the
I'd be
impression
interested to hear what people disagree on, because I think you can't argue that you need it, right?
you
Like,
can.
no, Scrap, they are arguing it, and they're arguing it
Yeah,
very heavily.
no, you can't. Like, you just stop.
But
Chill. Like you can't.
I don't go out on X or Twitter as
No,
much
but we've
as
even seen
some
it in our own
folks.
Discord.
I know. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Ioski was fucking tilted out first day.
he was like
That's
more
'cause he
hyped about anything I've ever
He
seen.
loves
He was
he loves
crashing out.
settles.
I
He
believe
loves
you said
settles so
something
much.
about like doing something with Holly Longdale. I don't remember. Burning her at the stake.
You blame this on Holly
Whoa.
Longdale.
Something like that.
Allegedly, Holly, you're a lovely lady.
No, it was my fault mostly.
Call her
Yeah.
a witch.
I don't remember what the term.
Anyways,
Scrap's a Holly hater.
There was a crashing out.
We
I
are
love
knocking on
Holly.
the door
I
of
don't even know
2
Holly.
hours 30 minutes, so reasonable for I think
Whoa.
the subject matter. But let's get Lithium to bed. He's got work in the morning.
It is 8
Last
hours.
words on either this or anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I think we can close it up. Let's just...
Don't be mean to people on the internet if they don't agree with you.
I think no.
I've seen a lot of people be mean to people.
Frank and Io are on this Twitter arc thing, and like
Yeah,
I'm just like I'm watching them like get all excited about all these interactions and stuff. But as somebody who's been down the Twitter hole, I know where this leads, and
We've
it's
already
not
seen
Your
it.
good.
demise.
I've already seen it for sure. Right?
Yeah,
When
you become.
I've made some rules as to engagement, so I don't get myself worked up.
When
gonna
they
get
changed
angry.
the Dinars, they overworked the Debs.
Oh, okay,
Just like
yeah.
Sonic's eyes.
Right. Oh my God, don't start with me. I'm just saying, like, you're gonna start by being outraged. You're gonna spend so much time arguing with people, and you're become completely disenchanted with like just like the intelligence level of like the majority of people you see around you.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm curious to see where this Twitter arc goes. You guys go follow them on Twitter. Watch the arc with me. Watch it unfold.
I'm
Hold on,
watching
so-
from the side as well.
Let's
Yeah,
real quick.
plug the
I
Twitters.
changed my Twitter handle, so it's no longer at League Mythic. It's now MDL Frank because I realized that people thought I was a bot. You can follow us on
MDL
Twitch
Frank.
/MDL Frank. I would say that we will have our experiments and our traders raid coming up soon. Keep an eye on Twitch for that.
Yep.
And I also appreciate the more people that have been coming and watching the stream. That's always great. And mythicdungeonleague.com, where you'll be able to sign up for the traders raid if you want to also find our Discord. Sorry, I just wanted to do the plug real quick.
No, I think the plug is
yeah.
good,
Like and
and I think the
subscribe.
Twitter plug is good because
Just
all
know-
you guys are hype about the Twitter stuff.
If you come into our Discord and you see us ever talking bad about any other content creators, it's usually just a meme. We don't actually hate titles. We
or
love
we're
titles.
envious as shit.
Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
Frank
Yeah,
and
I
Tuttles.
wish I wish I had Title's life. So
He
That'd be
he
pretty
seems
cool.
to have a nice place in Chicago. So
Yeah.
So, we had a lot of things we still want to talk about, but we will next week. MDL, we want to talk about resilient keys because we're starting to get in that space too. I'm sure this.
MDI. You said MDL.
Sorry, MDL. Sorry, MDI. You're right. Sorry. And also some player housing news came out, so we might have Shawnee in
Oh,
for that
yeah.
episode. We will
Oh,
get to
yeah.
that next week just because there was clearly no time. By the way, I love the shadow drop of the player news right, or the player housing news right after
Yep.
the discourse happened.
It's
That was the
literally
end of the
like-
week.
Damage control. It's damage
Yeah.
control. They're like, we gotta send a player housing update out.
It's like
save face.
when you have a falling out with someone and you leave and you realize you forgot like your shoes at their house, so you're like, hey, by the way, I need these.
I think it's less that. I bet they have like a bunch of player housing things like just like ready to send out at any time, like updates, and they're like anytime they fuck up, they're like, quick, put a player housing
Well,
thing out to
I
take
even
over
feel
the
like the
Twitter
player
cycle.
housing one, comparatively to the first one, was very bare compared. Like the first one they did had
Yeah.
so many graphics and just screenshots.
I mean, I feel like they showed
This one had, like,
everything
2.
already.
Right?
Oh, okay,
This
that's
one had
fair.
2.
Oh,
This
man.
one was a lot more
Expect-
information than it was
Okay,
showing.
I'm not kept
hold
up
it for
on I'm
Shawnee.
fine with that. Yeah.
Hold it for
we'll
Shawnee.
keep it.
Scrap. I didn't think the Minecraft movie was that great. I don't know.
I thought it was terrible, but I loved it.
Okay.
Chicken jockey.
Oh,
My daughter loved it, by
recommendation-
the way. My daughter.
Yeah,
loved
no.
it.
It's for the audience is perfect. I
She
will
wants
say
to
my
play Minecraft
movie
though.
recommendation of the week is I saw Sinners, and it was so fun.
I'm
Like-
going to
we're
see
gonna
that
go-
Wednesday.
Yes,
gonna
I'd
see
be interested
that.
in your take
My
because there's a lot to discuss. I don't think it was super successful as like a horror movie, but as just like if you
Was it
are a
supposed to be a
movie
horror movie?
lover,
Yeah,
well
Kind of.
it's been
kind of.
pitched as Ryan
If
Coogler's first horror movie.
yes,
Oh, okay.
if you are a movie lover, you're gonna love like the music, the cinematography, the performances are so good, and it, at the end of the day, is very very fun. And it's rare that you see a good like even like on the edge horror movie like
It's original,
so go
too.
see it. It's yeah.
Support original
So-
movies. Yeah. By the way, someone called out, and I think it was even Tom Cruise who like responded to it, that like it made $60 million in its first weekend, and they were saying, well, that's not that great of a
Great.
performance. And they're like, Tom Cruise is like, what the fuck are you talking about? $60 million for
Yeah.
an original movie? That's
Yeah.
insane.
It's worth a
Great.
watch, and it's definitely worth seeing in theaters because it was a good time. I couldn't
Ben
recommend it.
Stiller was defending, but
Oh, Ben Stiller.
Um,
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, but I'm gonna see it when I get back from Seattle. It just I like originals. So
Okay. Anything else?
Wrap it
All
up.
right. I love y'all. Thank you for agreeing with me. And I love telling the internet they're idiots.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, all that fun shit. It does help us. We are.
No, seriously, in the comments, because I do want to know if people disagree with our points. Because
You're just going to bring the Twitter folks into YouTube.
I mean, I don't really respond to the comments, but I'm just I'm really curious because we're like we do end up in a bit of a box, like where we're talking amongst each other and we generally agree on stuff. I want to know, like, I'm having trouble racking my brain thinking why, like, literally, what is the case for you need this? I don't get that. Tell me in the comments.
Other than that, please continue to help us grow because we are effectively a nonprofit. We didn't get any money out of MTI to help us get Scrap a new microphone.
Yeah.
Ioski, you jinxed us by saying, I can't wait to see you guys. I think you said something like, how far will you go? And the answer was, we didn't go any further. And I'll get into that later with Chani here because I'm going to be arguing with him about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we love you all. That's episode 46, 2 hours, 30 some odd minutes.
30 is what my timer says.
Hopefully
It's a short one.
the extra innings was worth it. We will see you next week. Take care.
Bye bye.
ciao.